Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
Ladies, gentlemen, and people of all ages, welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. I'm your host, Dagan Dagster Moriarty. Good to see you. We've got a gem for you today featuring two of LSM's absolute crown jewels of podcasting, both key members of the Punching Up cult, coincidentally. First up, California knows how to party, host of Summon Sign and freshly minted host of Punching Up a Nintendo podcast. Also, all around nice fella, Mr. Bradley Ellis, everybody.
Hello. Hi, guys. Hope you're both doing well today. It's Friday. Feeling good. Always love Fridays. So I'm ready to talk with you boys. It's always nice to talk with you, Dagan. So I don't get to see you that much, so I cherish it.
I know, it's a treat.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get tired of each other because we never do this. It's a really good dynamic. And also, can I tip my cap, Brad? You're very chipper. A reminder for everybody, it's 10-ish, going on 10:30 in the morning on the West Coast, whereas Gene and I, it's 1:30. That's a big difference. So I like the energy is what I'm saying, Brad. I appreciate it.
Yeah, try to bring it. Sometimes you're tired, but you just got to power through it. That's all you can do.
Brad, before I move on, one small bone to pick.
Okay.
Yeah, this snuck up on me. I was fascinated, joyful, and yet really kind of crestfallen by this.
Oh, no.
You did a podcast recently. Now remind me, was it an episode of Summon Sign or Sacred Plus where you had my maybe, I'm just going to say, favorite podcaster of all time, certainly in the video game space, Johnny Millennium.
Oh,
Happy console gamer.
Yes, that was Summon Sign.
And I was so psyched to see you and Dustin sitting with Johnny, who he has no idea who I am, but I've met him as a fan. Great guy. Maybe one of the earliest YouTubers. He's been in the space for quite some time. Long time. One of the first dudes I really got into, kind of like my Canadian sort of like, he's my doppelganger up there, ex-skateboarder, right? Yeah. Video game and old anime head dating back. And I was at the same time overjoyed and jealous that I wasn't part of that. But it was an excellent show. I loved it. You guys killed it. Well,
I think he'll be back in the future. So
good.
Fear not. Maybe we can get you on with him.
Very nice. That's awesome. Very, very cool. But
yeah, he's like our
show.
He's like our Canadian Dagan. You just love him. He's a great guy.
He really, let's be honest. I think I'm like a month older than him, but dude, he's got like a great style, handsome. You know, he's got the whole nerd thing going on. He's like a kind of an older Brad Ellis, I would say.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
He's got that whole thing going on. I enjoyed it. It was kind of it was worlds colliding seeing you. I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of Johnny. I'm a fan of Dust. Got all three of you guys. It was awesome. So I wanted to commend you. And it was a surprise. I had no idea that was going to happen. So it snuck up into my YouTube feed. I was like, whoa.
I try to keep that kind of stuff under wraps just in case something happens or whatever. If they can't make it.
Smart. So there was no preamble for it. You just kind of dropped it on people when it was done.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah.
Okay.
But you mentioned it on Thread though, right?
Yeah. I've been talking to him for months, and we were just waiting for him to get his setup all going and everything, his streaming setup.
Yeah, he was mentioning that. It was months in the works or whatever. That other voice, ladies and gentlemen, coming at you, broadcasting live from the nation's capital, my pal and yours, guaranteed. I said it, to make you smile or your money back. Please clap. Mean Gene Park, boys and girls.
Please clap. You know, I thought Jeb Bush was gonna come up from behind an election. You know, just come out of nowhere. You know,
what a great moment.
But yeah, recording live from Washington D.C.
Mhm.
It's gonna be crazy town again in a couple months. So we'll see. The fun thing about elections, what I've learned now that I've lived here in D.C. for through two of them, right, is and through two changing administrations, is that the town does change. The tenor of the town does change with the presidency because you will have people move in for the administration.
That's right.
So, yeah, the vibe of the city will change, but it hasn't really been the same since Obama was president, though. You know, and I was only here for 1 year during the Obama years.
Okay.
But I'll tell you that it was way closer to like the Roaring '20s type of like feel, or like a kind of like a golden era where everybody was like really happy. And I'm not saying like this is like the best time in America. I'm literally just talking about like DC, you know, like analysts or political types who were just really like thriving under and of course these are democratic folks too.
Sure.
Were like thriving under the Obama administration. And then when Trump came in, like it still stayed mostly the same, but the Trump folks would stick around in one part of town mostly. Because they realized that nobody really liked them like around town, so they just like hung around like this one area of town, and they just like lived there too. So
that's pretty fascinating. Gene, I've never thought of that before. Like, I never lived in a place like DC because that's the political epicenter. So the energy really emanates from there. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that's the case to some small degree everywhere in the United States under a new administration, but in the nucleus of it going on like that, because like you said, it's down to the actual people that are in town. I never thought of that. It's pretty fascinating. So are you worried?
I'm not worried because I already went through 4 years of the Trump administration.
Yeah,
so
you've been there.
It was fine. And to be quite honest, 2016 to 2020 were fun years for me. You know, I had a really good time working here in DC and hanging out in DC. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's mostly for people who work in politics. You know, that it just means that your coworkers will change, right? And also probably like bar owners will have to think about who the type of people they're going to serve. You know, or restaurant owners too. So that's why like Obama was different, because Obama was the kind of person who actually like went out into town, like Michelle and Barack. Like they would go out into restaurants and they would go out into like the bars, and like that's what would create like the excitement, you know, like, oh my God, Obama's over there and Obama's over there, because they actually liked hanging around his town. They actually liked going around and hanging out with his people.
Sure.
And then Trump didn't do that. He like his own people. He isolated himself in the White House. And he wouldn't even go to McDonald's. He would just order McDonald's, like what I do, like through Uber, you know. But he would get it through Secret Service.
Oh shit!
And then, but so he would never like go out and eat because he never wanted to eat. He only ate at the Trump Hotel, which was the old post office.
Oh, interesting.
And because he had steak and fries there, so that's where he can get his steak and ketchup meal. You know.
Oh, that was his thing, steak frites.
Yeah, steak and ketchup mostly. So. Like steak and ketchup. So he would only eat there. So there was no like nightlife, like charged by or like led by the chief executive of the country. You know.
Sure.
And then Biden came into town, and he is just old, so he just didn't do anything either. You know. So.
That's a good. That I was thinking about that. Is it an age thing? You're talking about Obama versus Trump, so that could be a young versus old thing. What about now we got somebody like Vance, who's a young Republican in town? Will he embrace more of the Obama thing, being out and about? That's 40 years old. That's
interesting. Yeah.
Right?
I don't know. I mean, Kamala didn't, though, you know, not really. So that's that, you know, if Kamala, who is well liked here and really beloved here in DC, didn't really energize that, then I don't think JD Vance is going to do anything. But he is the first millennial in the White House, so there's that. Yeah, that is true. I thought of that. Yeah, he was born in '84, right? Just like our younger than me. It's crazy. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to listen. We're going to circle back to this, I think, according to your topic. Yeah, for sure.
So we're going to get more into this stuff. But now with intros out of the way, I say we jump right in. I think how I'm going to call it this week, we're going to go Brad, Gene, and then I'll bat cleanup. And Brad, if you don't mind, you could launch right into it, my dude.
Yeah. So my topic this week is, I'm sorry, Gene, we've heard me talk about this. It's Pokemon, dude. I've gotten into Pokemon recently. Context, though. Pokemon came out here in the United States, I believe in 1998. So I was a 6th grader. I was a really good age for Pokemon to come out.
Okay.
Played the Game Boy game with my brother. We both each had our own copies. I played Red. He played Blue. I still have his copy of Blue. I don't know where my Red is, but still got Blue. Played it. It was a phenomenon for people around my age. Every kid played Pokemon, like everybody, even people that didn't play video games really were playing Pokemon. Then the anime came out and that started taking over. Then the movie, then the Pokemon cards are huge also. And as you guys probably know, Pokemon is the biggest intellectual property on the entire planet. It is the dominant force of everything. It is a machine that will not stop, as you guys know. I have a very love-hate relationship with Pokemon. I liked Red and Blue when they came out, and then I kind of fell off for years, tried some of them other ones. I always wanted to like Pokemon more, but I could never do it because, I don't know, the quality wasn't high enough for me at the time. I was always let down by it. But recently I started to go back and play some of the earlier games I'd never played before, and I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of clicking. I'm enjoying the simplicity of it this time around and the simple pleasures of it, I should say. So I've been doing a slow journey of going through all the games that I can, especially because now, I'm the host of Punching Up. I should know something about Pokemon because it's such a big part of Nintendo and everything like that. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like Gene knows some too as well, which is really good to help and helpful to have. But it's like, okay, I should really dive in here to get to know this kind of stuff.
Right.
So I'm really curious because you guys are older than me. What was Pokemon like for you guys? Like Dagan, were you in college or high school when Pokemon came out?
Yeah. When you sent the topic over, I was like, I know this came out when I was in college. I thought, you might be right, it might have been 98. I thought it was more like mid going into just starting the late 90s, like let's say 96, because I felt like I was
in
Japan,
sophomore. I think. So you might have seen it like Japanese imports or something.
Yeah, and I might have because I knew so many weebs at that point.
Yeah.
They might have been in on the ground level type of thing. But I was a sophomore. I mean, this will be a sign of my age for sure. I was a sophomore or a junior in art school when it came out because I remember it. And you must be right. It must have been later in the 90s because I already remember them being in the aisles of like not only the toy stores but the pharmacies. If you went into a Dwayne Reed, they were on the spinner racks and everything. And I remember, I think that dovetailed with Pogs. So those Pokemon on Pogs. Yes. It was just like a craze. But the weird thing was I was already in my early 20s and I didn't know Colin was 12 or 13. So he had just missed it age-wise, right? The one kid I knew that was of age, perfect wheelhouse for Pokemon when it came out was our cousin Junior. And he was really into it. The trading cards, he rocked the T-shirts, he had the Game Boy games. Colin was also into the Game Boy games. Yeah, I do remember that. But I remember it's such an interesting topic because it's one of those IPs with crazy serious legs. Not only the size of it, but the longevity of it now. And I was thinking about this with my son because let's say it came out in 98. He was born in 2010, my 14-year-old. And let's say it took him a few years to get into it. He was 3 or 4 at the time. So let's say 2014-ish, he started to get into it. Now it had already been out for 15 years. And that strikes me because people getting into it, like you knowing about it and just recently getting into it and the draw of it. And it all comes down to that one thing that I realized in my early 20s is like that gotta catch them all slogan is one of the most brilliant, insidious, unapologetic slogan. Like it sums it all up. But there's such for me, even recognizing this in art school, and there's this thing in design, if you work in animation or illustration, called appeal. It's a very hard thing to articulate, but especially when it comes to character design, Pokemon really embodies this idea of round, cute, bright colors, cool looking, but friendly, right? So already appealing to a very broad age demographic, sort of candy-like palette, very clever, very appealing. Kind of walks both sides of the fence of being cool and being just kind of fun to look at and cute.
Yeah.
Very Japanese in its design sense, which I love. And I was thinking when Brad said the topic over, I was like, where can I go with this? Let me sit down and really think about Pokemon cards, because really what it comes down to for me, having a 14-year-old that's aging out of that stuff, I can't even tell you. It was really the one thing Graydon, my son, was really into. And that it was the phase that lasted the longest with him. So he collected them over a matter of years, the trading cards specifically. He was into the games to some degree, but it was mostly, oddly for his generation, the cards with him. And I can't even tell you the amount, like Rubbermaid bins full of loose cards. Dozens of pounds if we're going by weight, right? I'm just thinking, what do we do with? I'm trying to tell him, like, he's like, Dad, like most of these are worth like pennies, like they're not worth a lot, type of thing. Because at first I was like, maybe, his mom's like, who doesn't know anything about this stuff? It's like, great, and you put yourself through college with this, I'm like, let's not jump ahead of ourselves. I'm just thinking, what's a good plan for these things? They're sitting here, they're collecting dust. He's at the age where I think he feels a tingle, like he's not interested anymore, but he's reticent to part with them. So I'm like, what? You know what? I had an idea. And you guys let me know what you think of this. Why can't we develop a time period, right? We'll put a moratorium on it, where we could just use Pokemon cards as currency. Now, it would be great if we could go into a Wendy's or a supermarket with the Pokemon cards, but let's be more realistic. Nerd culture circles, cons, retro video game stores, maybe GameStop could participate in this, give them a little get out of that bankruptcy, phase. We use Pokemon cards as currency, and we develop a universal amount. Maybe the card's worth $50. Maybe the card's worth a penny. Probably best not even a check. We develop a universal amount for each card. Let's say each card is 25 cents. Sometimes I might be giving you a $10 card. Sometimes I'm giving you a card that's worth less than a cent, right? And you could just use them to barter. I want to buy some comic books. I want to buy some retro games. I want to buy some original artwork at the con, right? Mm-hmm. If we could all just participate in this, we could get rid of the card. I don't know where the cards go from there. But for me, it's like I got all these cards sitting in my basement in Rubbermaid bins. I'm thinking, this is finished once the hot water heater explodes down there, which is eventually going to happen if we don't replace it soon, right?
Right.
So I'm like, well, how do we get out from under with this thing? So maybe we just do a thing where we could go to the Too Many Games, Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, San Diego Comic-Con, Javits Center, New York Comic-Con every year. When is that, in October? I don't know. There's I'm at that phase where we have so many cards. What do we do with them? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We're drowning in Pokemon cards over here.
I don't see why not, Dagan. Because Pokemon is kind of something that's always in vogue. It never has gone away, and it comes in different forms still. Like Pokemon Go, you guys remember, was like humongous when it came out.
That's right.
Pokemon still thrives somehow. It's like you can make Pokemon cards, Dagan, like the next cryptocurrency or something like that. You could trade Pokemon cards.
It just makes sense.
Do it. Yes.
Pokemon Go is a great... that was a craze to the degree that was another thing that got a whole generation of people, and I would argue an age group of people that were never interested.
Yes, I saw a lot of older people playing it, like much older.
They should do that every 10 years or so, like a new gimmick to broaden the fold of Pokemon. I wonder what the next thing... That's another fascinating thing about this company. We definitely talked about it on Punching Up in the past. But an IP that's divided over 3 separate companies and owned and operated and thereby profiting by, Game Freak, Creatures Inc. and Nintendo, it's such a fascinating model. and the division of labor with it, which I don't even know if I fully understand who's responsible for what. You would assume Nintendo has the most invested because they have the most money.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't really know how that division of labor works and who's profiting in which way.
I wonder,
and who's doing what. But that's a fascinating model. And yeah, I mean, like Mario, we talk about Mario, but definitely Mickey Mouse in its scale. Like Mickey Mouse be damned. Like Pokemon seems a lot bigger and a lot more universal than Mickey Mouse will ever be.
Yeah. You could put Mickey Mouse next to Pikachu easily. They'd stand side by side.
100%.
Just like that iconic, man. It's like Dagan reminds me of Star Wars, There's Star Wars everything. And there's Pokemon everything. It's just like a license that prints money forever kind of thing like that. It's insane, man.
Amazing.
And it just doesn't stop still. Like the new games sell so incredibly well still. It's insane. I can't believe it after all these times. It keeps finding a new audience. It is the very basic gotta catch them all. Like you said, it's a dubious but also genius marketing term for it. And it works still in everyone today. Somehow it finds its way into older and newer people's lives. And it just won't stop, man. It's crazy. I don't understand it. But Dan, I'm curious, you brought this up. You were talking about, because as an animator, I think this is really interesting. You're talking about the designs of the Pokemon, and you're saying how they could be cute and rough. It's like there's a Pokemon design for everybody out there. And I think that's so important to getting someone into the series. It's like someone gravitates to a certain Pokemon. Like a lot of people gravitate towards Pikachu or something like that, or Charizard. There's always something for everybody. So I am really curious, from what you can remember, what are kind of some Pokemon that stand out to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I remember looking at Bulbasaur. I don't know which sort of evolution state of him, but I remember looking at one of those. That's like the turtle guy with the cannons, right?
That's Blastoise. Bulbasaur's the plant little guy with the little plant on his back.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for reminding me. That Blastoise character is maybe the perfect character design for me. The volume,
I love him. So
how
good.
Appealing he is. He's badass, but he's adorable. He was always a favorite of mine. That embodied like not just Pokemon, but I was like, it makes you realize, like, when you talk about the craze of Pokemon and these everlasting, like, infinite legs that this has, and it's always finding new audiences and it's always striking a chord. Like, I get it. Like, when I look at Pokemon, I get it. Like, I think it deserves that level of affection from people because it's that cool. It just is. It just gets it, visually, and the whole idea of it and the collecting aspect. The other character, who is the guy? I'm sure this is a big one because I see this one pop up a lot on social media. He's like the purple fire looking face dude. He's like
Haunter, I think maybe. He kind of looks like a flame, or Gengar.
Right?
It's probably one of those.
I'll know it when you tell me his name. I could look it up too.
Here, I'll send you pictures and you can see.
And I always thought Raichu was cool. I always thought Raichu looked cool. like a bizarro Pikachu.
Yeah. He's the evolution.
So I thought Raichu was always a cool. Let me see.
That's Haunter.
Let me see. No, it's similar to that though. I can't think.
Let's see about.
I'm going to look it up because I know it's a lot of people's favorites, and
Try looking at Gengar. Maybe you're thinking of that one.
Let me see. I'm going to look that up.
Gengar. He's a very popular one.
Yes, I think that's the guy I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Gengar guy. That's just a really cool character design. He's got the animal sort of features and qualities to it, but that's the thing about Pokemon. Like, they're a little bit monster. They're a little bit supernatural. They embody like some demonic features or ghost-like features. They're like this cool mesh. Some have the robotic aspect or the more versus the more organic aspect. They just embody like really cool design sensibilities. And then they're always inventing new stuff to add to it that fits, but evolves it. So people continue to get excited about it, which is so interesting. Like, there are very few IPs that are that thoughtfully done, and again, like it just mints money because it is so well done and so lovingly sort of marshaled and shepherded. You know,
Yeah.
I can't even think of a lot of things that are as cool as Pokemon and have that staying power.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, man. Pokemon just doesn't waver. You know, like even like Star Wars has like wavered over the years and stuff like that. And Marvel and all that stuff. It's still incredibly popular, but it just seems like Pokemon is a constant money-making machine for people of all ages. It's insane. I'm curious though, Gene. So you are a Pokemon fan. You've played many Pokemon games, actually. I believe your first ones were like Red and Blue as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
You started with those ones. So what about Pokemon, I guess, drew you in, Gene? What was the appeal of it?
Yeah, it drew me in because it looked like Earthbound. Basically, you know.
That's awesome.
At that point, I had already played Earthbound or Mother 2 on Nintendo. And then so when I heard about this Pokemon game on Game Boy, I was like, oh, it kind of looks like Earthbound. Wait, you have to catch monsters? That's interesting. And then I started to play it. And keep in mind, remember, I grew up in Guam, so I had much better access to Japanese culture and Japanese games. So I had heard about Pokemon from my Japanese friends for a long time. But then when the game finally came out in 1998, I was a senior in high school. And I definitely played a ton of Pokemon as a senior in high school. Watched the cartoon show. You know, it's still in high school. It's still good. But boy, yeah, I played a ton of Pokemon. Me and my Japanese friends, Carlos. Remember, it's Guam, so we're gonna have Japanese guys named Carlos there. Carlos was the guy who turned me on to Pokemon, and he was a crazy guy because he's like half Japanese, half Guamanian. So that's why his name is Carlos. But he was like super buff for no reason. He was the biggest gamer and the biggest like anime nerd, right? Like he liked all he was the guy who turned me on to hentai, like taught me like what a hentai was. He was like, "Hey Gene, check out this tentacle port," like that. But he was super buff. Like he was like so yoked out. Like he never worked out, but every time like we played basketball or like he took off his shirt, we're just like, Carlos, where does that body come from? You're so like ripped. Like, and we hang out with him all the time. We never saw him work out. He never did push. It's like he did like 100 push-ups every day or something, right?
That's
like One Punch Man or some shit, you know? So maybe he was just eating a bunch of bananas and just doing like 10 sit-ups a day or whatever, and that was enough. And we were young too, so our bodies are more easily shaped. But really buff Carlos was the guy who bought me Pokemon Red while he had Pokemon Blue. And him and I played a ton of Pokemon together. He was the guy I shared and traded Pokemon with, and that's how I got to understand the Pokemon trading concept. And we played a ton of Pokemon in class. You know, this is before the era of smartphones, so I have no earthly idea what it's like to go to school today and just have like a fucking phone on you, like whenever. I don't know. You know, even in college, we didn't have smartphones back then. You know, I had a beeper in college. You know, but the closest thing to that experience of being distracted in class was having Pokemon, and you know, we played it on mute, and we were just like battling like at the back of calculus. I feel we both failed calculus completely. I almost got held back a grade because I went to like a college prep school. So if you fail a class, you actually just get held back a grade.
Man.
So I had to ask the teacher, like, can you just bump it up to D so I don't, you know, I don't become a 17-year-old senior, you know, or whatever. And that worked out. But yeah, I mean, that was really my first exposure to Pokemon. I went in really deep with Carlos, and we had the stance where you know, we would have our books open in the back of class. We would both sit in the back of class, and we have our books open, and then we would kind of like put our elbows to our stomach and like lean forward, so it only show our head, the top of our heads, so it looked like we were really interested in what was going on in the book. But then really we had our little Game Boys and we were just like plinking away at Pokemon. So that's really my experience again with distracted school attendance or whatever. But yeah, after that, you know, the Pokemon movie came out. That was hype with Mewtwo and everything.
Was that 2000, I think?
Yeah, I think that was 2000, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
And I think, I came back to Guam during that summer, I think, probably, and probably watched it because I remember watching it with my little sister. Of course, my little sister was huge into Pokemon too.
Right.
Like I got her, either I got her into it or she was already into it, like independently herself. And we grew up watching the cartoon too. Every day after school we'd go watch it too. So I'm definitely still of the age where Pokemon like touched my relative childhood, I guess.
Yeah. So what's the journey been like with Pokemon? The ups and downs, I guess, with you, because you say
I just stopped
semi-consistent.
Yeah, basically in college, I just stopped, right? Because, like during high school and my transition to college, like when I became like a freshman in college, I just stopped playing games altogether.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even have a PlayStation 1. Like I left it at home with my sister, so I didn't even bring mine. And then, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Like, why? Like, that's crazy that I would just leave my PlayStation. But I figured that like my roommates would have one, so that's where I just figured like, and they did. So that's how I continued to play PlayStation. But it was really until Metal Gear Solid 1 when I played that game like 2 years later, where I was like, oh, I should get back into video games. But at that time, like I was then, because MGS was my gateway back into games. I was more interested in games like that, or 3D games, or 3D adventures games with like a lot of voice acting, cinematic stuff like Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And then I just fell out of Pokemon because Pokemon, still doesn't have voice acting,
It's so frustrating, man.
It's been 20 years and Pokemon still doesn't have voice acting or anything like that. So, that's kind of why I, Colin always says he quote unquote grew out of Nintendo. And, I get that people have their issues with that phrasing. I did too. I was like, fuck you, Colin. Like, well, what do you mean grow out of Nintendo? What the hell is that supposed to mean? But then I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I get it though. Sometimes like a Mass Effect will come out and you're just like, Nintendo doesn't have this right now.
Right.
So,
yeah. All right. I get that. Yeah. Pokemon's a weird game though, in that it evolves extremely slow, I guess, from entry to entry. And it's like, they still don't really have voice acting. You're right, Gene. It's like, how does this game that sells like 30 million, 40 million copies or something like that with both games put together or something each time they come out, not have voice acting or feel low budget in a lot of ways? Mm-hmm. It's just so strange, man.
But that's why it's so profitable. And I was watching this really great video that just came out from a YouTuber, Never Knows Best. But he has a great video essay about the history of JRPGs. And of course Pokemon is part of that too, because Pokemon is technically a JRPG, honestly. That's why I thought it was Earthbound.
Yeah, good point.
But he was also talking about the growing pains of JRPGs in like the early 2000s, when of course games are getting voice acting, but JRPGs or just RPGs in general just have so much voice lines, right? So it really felt like JRPGs in general just started to kind of fall out of favor because it's so expensive to be able to voice every single character. Sure. And it was really only games like Kingdom Hearts, right, or like Final Fantasy 12 that could do it. But other smaller IP would not be able to do it. Your Tales series or your Suikoden or whatever like that. And Pokemon didn't do it either. And that's what's Pokemon's secret, is that they still don't do it. Despite being like 100 times more successful than like a Tales of Symphonia or like a Grandia or whatever like that. Despite earning so much more money, they don't spend that money on voice actors or sound or anything like that, or that level of production. And it's a huge reason why Pokemon is so profitable. And they also prove that you don't really need that stuff, honestly, to sell games.
No, it's frustrating.
They might not even review all that well, and they might have a lot of backlash every single time. But as we just discussed recently on Punching Up, like, Sword and Shield is still the best, one of the top selling best games of all time, even though everyone talks about, oh my God, the trees were so ugly and everything like that. And it's like nobody, the 25 million people didn't care,
Yeah.
Or maybe they did care, but they bought it anyways, so it doesn't matter.
Sure. It's so frustrating how popular and beloved that series is, but it's just like, man, can you guys just elevate it a
that
little bit,
lack
please.
of meaningful audio is almost expected now. I always kind of wondered, I'm not really into the video games. And, you know, I watched it through the lens of Colin and then later my son. But I always wondered, is it something where it's like voicing, it's like there'll never be a Calvin and Hobbes cartoon, not only because Watterson doesn't want it, but because you don't want to put a voice to characters that you had in your imagination for so long. It's almost like Nintendo and Link not giving him an actual type
but but all the characters in the anime all talk.
Yeah, I was gonna say they have an anime where everyone talks.
Yeah.
So that seal was broken like immediately.
Yeah, you're right.
That's true.
I mean, you're absolutely right, because then it would just be you know what? That's
so there is no wall of mystery or veil of mystery that they're trying to protect here. It's just
a cost cutting thing.
It's just that the games are cheap and they sell anyway. So
it's part of the style.
That is part of the style, and that's part of why they're profitable. But also, I guess maybe that's why they're popular, because they haven't evolved all that much, and people just like that original formula.
Yeah,
and they're just like, fuck it, let's not fix it. You know, like the whole problem with Final Fantasy or even Dragon Age, for example, right now is that every fucking Dragon Age game is completely different. Right? It's weird.
There's no tether.
Yeah. And I mean that's what the argument with Final Fantasy is, that every Final Fantasy is different, so you never have any kind of expectation, you know.
Yes.
You think about the biggest Instagram accounts. The biggest Instagram accounts aren't Instagram accounts that just post whatever, you know. They're Instagram accounts that have a consistent
thread
post of like, you know, this is a cat account, so you're going to always see this fucking cat every single day. This is a fashion account, so you're going to see this girl pose in different clothes every day. They're not going to be lifestyle vlogging or anything like that, you know. And so that's what Pokemon is. It's a Pokemon game, so it's going to be a Pokemon game. We're just going to catch them all, and it's just a rags to riches story almost every single time, right?
It's like another never-ending. Like it's a new season. You're talking about fashion, Instagram or something like that. It's like a Pokemon is like a new season of fashion coming out or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a fashion show. It's just new models, maybe, you know, new monsters, but it's the same format every single time, you know. And then it was, you know, I try to keep up with Pokemon a lot. You know, like I grew up, not grew up in Hawaii, but I worked in Hawaii for 8 years, which is a shorter time than I've been in DC, which is so crazy. I can't believe I've been in Washingtonian longer than I've been a Hawaii resident.
Wow.
Because it feels like I just have deeper roots in Hawaii, but truth is, I might not. But, you know, Hawaii was huge in Pokemon too. And then Pokemon Sun and Moon is all about Hawaii, the Alola region, right? So, of course, I felt like I had to like tap back in. And so that's why I got the 3DS, and I tried like the Alola region Pokemons and Pokemon X and Y. And I never really finished them, but I did enjoy them. But then when I played them, I was like, oh, it's still the same format.
Yeah, it's still the same, dude.
This is still the same kind of game. Oh, okay. So that's why I just never finished it. So and then Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. So like to finish off my gaming background, I just really didn't play any of like Diamond and Pearl or like White and Gold or White and anything in between at all. I didn't touch any of those all the way up until X and Y and the Sun and Moon games, and I didn't finish those. And then when the Switch came out, well, of course, there was Pokemon Go in 2016, right? 2015, 2016. Yeah. And you were saying about how, you know, one thing about Pokemon is that, you know, Pokemon Go was really the first public introduction to augmented reality technology, right? Using your phones or using your glasses to kind of, you know, put 3D objects into the world, right? That was really everyone's first exposure to it. It was kind of like a Trojan horse. So that's why when people talk about the metaverse, right, living in a virtual world, you know, Mark Zuckerberg is like, oh, the metaverse is like where you can have Zoom meetings and it'll be 3D or whatever like that, right? And like my thinking is like the metaverse is not really going to ever really be like an exciting thing until Nintendo decides that we can do it in Pokemon. But we're not going to do that. Their Nintendo will never do that, and the Pokemon company will never do that until they ever make the Pokemon MMO, which has been on all of our dreams and fantasies for like the last 25 years. And that's why Power World was so fascinating, because it's like, oh, a multiplayer catch 'em all monster type of thing where I can just like wander around a world. So that's what Power World was able to kind of fulfill that, and Temtem too is trying to fulfill that too. But none of these things actually matter because it's really the magic of Pokemon and the Pokemon characters and the rules of Pokemon and like the world of Pokemon that people actually like. You know, we don't want to spend time in Zoom meetings on Facebook. We would like to be in the Alola region or the Kanto region or whatever, and hear the theme song and go to the Nurse Joy station and then heal our Pokemon. And like that would be that, you know, I feel like if that happens, I'll probably be like 75 years old. And then, you know, I hope to live that long. And then putting on a set of virtual glasses and just entering into the Pokemon Kanto region.
I love that, Gene.
And then just catching the Pokemon. So I mean, so I got into Pokemon Go because it was a fad, right? It was huge, and I started to cover it for the Post too because I was already working for the Post at the time. And you know, turns out I am the only person at the Washington Post who knew anything about Pokemon. So it fell to me to explain what even Pokemon are again, you know, and then why this is such a huge thing. And I just simply explained it because it's fucking Pokemon, you know, like you put Pokemon in anything and people will probably line up for it. You know, it's got a bigger guaranteed audience than Star Wars does, a more loyal audience than Star Wars does, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that's it. And then, you know, I played Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu on the tails of Pokemon Go. And that was kind of what kind of restarted my admiration for the brand and the IP, and you know, Pokemon Go was just everywhere. You know, for fuck's sake, in New York City, Central Park, there's videos of thousands of kids like gathering at Central Park because they saw a rare Pokemon there. It was crazy.
That was crazy.
It's hard to ignore, and so that's what kind of reignited my appreciation for the brand. And you know, fortunately, Nintendo stepped up and they put out Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu. You know, such a smart strategy to make sure, you know, that's the kind of stuff that Xbox fails to do, where they're like, oh, let's have a Fallout TV show and no products at all, you know,
right?
The old stuff. Whereas Nintendo is like, oh my god, this Pokemon Go is probably going to be crazy. Let's have let's create a parallel game called Pokemon Let's Go on the Switch, and Pokemon Let's Go ended up selling like massively too, you know.
Yeah.
And it had integration with Pokemon Go. That's kind of stuff that Xbox doesn't seem to be able to really land. You know,
they can't do that. No,
they can't do it.
You can't overstate the size of the net that Pokemon Go cast on the public, like on society. Like my friends' aunts would be walking around the elementary school parking lot, like people that had nothing to do with video games or nerd culture. Like, you know, they put Pokemon on the tip of everybody's tongue. It really did. Like it was, I never really personally got into it. I think my kids dabbled in it, but they were pretty young. But like people that were completely unexpected, you know, that just everybody talking about it. That was the big water cooler thing, like nurses walking around the hospital, like, you know, people that had nothing to do previously with anything really pop culture or nerd culture related.
When I was stuck in the hospital for cancer, my nurse was a huge Pokemon fan.
Isn't that funny?
And she not only recognized who I was, I am the games reporter of Washington DC.
Sure.
But yeah, she was like, "Can I trade Pokemon with you?" Because I have my Nintendo Switch, like as I'm like in the hospital bed, and I have all these tubes sticking out.
Isn't that
like,
crazy?
Yeah, sure.
That
was crazy. When I had my big surgery to get to take on my cancer, the surgeon came in and he was like, "Hey, Gene, I'm really sorry to bother you, but you know, a couple of people just really wanted to say hi, and it's all the surgery students who would like observe my surgery, and they all knew who I was." And they were like, "Hey, you know, like we're really big fans of your writing. You know, like I got into like Halo because of you." Blah,
Dude,
blah, blah.
That's incredible.
And
that's so cool.
I was like, "Okay, cool. Can you just make sure I'm alive?" At the end of this, it's really weird that you guys are telling me that you guys admire me, and then you're gonna like see my guts open,
cut you open,
in a couple of hours.
Oh man!
But it was really touching, and it was really cool.
I thought you were gonna say the doctor was like, "Gene, there's a Raichu in there. I just got to grasp it. If I could just get to him."
That'd be really, really funny. Yeah. I mean, I even played Pokemon Go when I went to the White House. The only time I've ever actually visited the White House was when Obama was still in there,
Mm.
and then I started catching Pokemon in there, and I was actually what do you call it? Not the mayor, but the gym leader of the White House for
You were.
a
That's really
couple
funny.
of hours. So yeah, Pokemon Go in DC is fantastic because there's all these national monuments. And it was so funny because like we would like go up to like some of the like we'd go to the Pentagon or like the White House, and then the Secret Service would be like, hey, you can't like walk in here. And I'm like, oh, sorry, we just playing Pokemon. And they're like, oh, dude, I'm playing too. You know, like that's how big Pokemon Go was. You know, like fucking Secret Service was playing that shit too. You know,
That's amazing.
That's
There
so
were a lot
funny.
of people wandering into places they shouldn't have. Like, you
Exactly,
know, you just, that was an era. Do you guys remember when it first came out? Like the first few months, you would just see people walking along the side of, literally along the side of the highway, like putting themselves in treacherous situations.
Yeah, but the stores would take advantage of it. They'd be like, "Hey, if you want to hang out here and check in, like you can, and like maybe you'll get like a discount or whatever."
Yeah,
like
That's
that, you know?
right.
It
You're right.
So it really reminded me of like I don't know how deep you guys remember like social media apps, but Foursquare. Do you remember Foursquare?
Oh my god,
Yeah,
I
sure.
remember Foursquare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I used to check in to places all the time, and I was like the mayor of like so many things. Foursquare is this app where you can check into a place. And you can like leave a comment like at your favorite restaurant, and then it's like Yelp, but like it's more about checking in and like gaining points for like being a repeat customer to certain places. And then so like a lot of like businesses would be like, oh yeah, we'll give you a discount if you're like the mayor of 24-hour fitness, which I was actually back in Hawaii. I would check into 24-hour fitness when I used to go to the gym all the time, and I just became like the quote unquote mayor of that. So I really like that aspect of Pokemon Go of like checking into like different locations. And I don't know, we don't really have that anymore in social media anymore, right? We it's just about fucking fighting each other and like arguing about tits and ass or whatever like all day. That's just what social media is. It's not being about like going out and checking out places and like like discovering new places or whatever. It's just about yelling at each other. But Pokemon Go was different.
I wonder, Gene, for us, well, especially for me, because I'm older, or somebody like Jaffe's age, for us, like Gen Xers, would it have had it come out 10 or even 15 to 20 years earlier? Because it casts such a wide net in terms of a fan base. Like you love Pokemon if you're 8, you love it if you're 38. Everybody's an unapologetic, enthusiastic fan. It's like, I don't care if I'm unembarrassed, like this is my jam. And, to the point of like seeing like adult cosplayers at the cons and the college students driving to the local comic shop for tournaments. Like they're super engaged with this thing and they don't care who knows it. And, I grew up in an age, especially me being 50, like in the 80s, like there was a expiration date on your overt nerddom. We talk about that a lot. Like by the time you were 13, if you weren't into girls and cars and putting the G.I. Joes and Transformers and Star Wars down, there was an issue.
That was my issue because I was still at the tail end of that, right?
Yeah,
where,
right.
Right at the end of the 90s, where like me and gamer or me being to anime, I like techno music back in the day. Everyone loves techno music now. Techno, like dance music, is like the hottest thing,
That's
right?
the thing, yeah.
I really, really loved dance music back in the day, and people always called me homophobic slurs because of it. And they're like, oh, you like anime, you like games, or whatever like that. So that stuff actually, pushed me away from it.
I think Pokemon could have had the power in the 80s to transcend that earlier. Like Pokemon could have been the thing to break that. Like it's that strong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? It's that strong. People are just like, I don't care who knows it. Because we didn't really have anything like that in the 80s.
Yeah,
it was,
wow, what an interesting thought experiment. I
know?
never thought about that because, like the Ninja Turtles have survived, right? But that wasn't without casualties. The Ninja, there's a huge gap in generations of like people who actually like the Ninja Turtles, and they lost audience and everything like that. And it's just not the way what it used to be, or like Power Rangers, or of course Colin's favorite G.I. Joe. All of this stuff lost cultural cachet. But Pokemon came out from the 90s, and it's only bigger than ever now. Like,
It's true.
Could the 80s have stopped Pokemon? You're right. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're right. I think Pokemon might be able to have transcended that period too.
Yeah, if we just had it a little early.
I mean, Mario does, right? Like Mario and Zelda too are bigger than ever, right?
Yeah, that's true.
There are more Zelda fans now than ever before.
Yeah. 100. Yeah,
for sure,
definitely.
So, I mean, Nintendo has that way, it's IP under Nintendo, and I think a lot of people just don't really give them enough credit for that to be able to sustain and like grow these IP through generations, and that's what I really keep hammering home, is that Nintendo is a multi-generational company. They don't care about, that's why they don't have a game like The Last of Us, because they don't care about 40-year-old people. That it's really important that they continue to churn out. They catch them all. You got to catch the babies right as they get out, right as they're born.
Yeah, they get them young, and they
get them young. You gotta like Nintendo, and you're gonna be a Nintendo adult for life, and that's why there's Disney adults, because Disney did the same thing too. They continue to cultivate people into just being lifelong fans, So that's why you have a bunch of crazy Disney adults too. So I don't, and some Nintendo fans are just crazy too,
That is true. That is, I mean, really the other thing I should say is it's been a while, but I do remember, because when my son was collecting the cards when he was younger, and he was really engaged in the hobby, but it was mostly about going to the store, finding them, opening the packs. He had the whole technique for flipping and counting and whatever they do with the cards. So that whole thing. For me, it was like, all right, but we should probably get a little more mileage out of these things. So let's learn how to play this game. And we did eventually. It was complicated. I remember that. I don't remember the ins and outs, but I do remember the card game itself being a lot of fun to play. And we spent hours, my son and I, playing the game, just him and I. We never had anybody extra that was interested, or that could be engaged long enough to sit down with us for any meaningful amount of time. But that was another thing, playing the card game itself, which is really the essence of the whole thing, if you think about it, right? It was really fun. And the way they would implement, again, a very, like you guys said, very appropriately with the video games, a very deliberate evolution. Same thing with the card game, but they would usher in new things to spice things up and make things incrementally more interesting. But I do remember really enjoying the card game with my son. I kind of miss playing, because that was the, board game. That was the tabletop game that we definitely spent the most time with.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
That is cool. There are 1,025 Pokemon now.
Wow.
Currently. When it started for us, I think it was like 152 maybe or something. But yeah, they've come a long way with how many Pokemon there are. And I don't really know any of the newer ones at all, that well at least. Like I remember the old ones, like you were saying, Gengar, you liked, and Blastoise.
Yeah.
Gene, what's your favorite Pokemon?
Snorlax.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. Yeah,
that was an easy one. I was going to say, Pikachu, whatever like that. No, it's actually Snorlax. Snorlax is my favorite one. As soon as I caught Snorlax in Pokemon Go, I was like, I beat the game. I got my favorite one.
Yeah,
I beat it. I don't need another one. I don't even really use Snorlax like in my team sometimes. Although sometimes I do, because he's a good tank, right?
Yeah.
But he just sleeps a lot and just lies around, and I'm like, that's I love it. I love him.
It's something so relatable, I guess, for all of us, because we envy it sometimes. We're like, well, I just want to do and right now.
What a life. That's exactly it, Brad. I just envy Snorlax. I admire Snorlax. And it is, of course, very Totoro-like, right? Which is a huge deal too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just Snorlax. That's I don't really have any others.
It's a funny coincidence, because your favorite one is like Blastoise, and yours is Snorlax. Those two Pokemon are my favorite Pokemon as well.
Oh, so no way.
I don't know. Something weird about this. Yeah.
Wow.
I just lined up.
Blastoise is fucking awesome too. Like, he's like a transformer,
Yeah. He's just a cool looking turtle with cannons on his back. It's like, how can you not love that guy?
Yeah, that's good. Like, what more do you need? What more do you need from an animal-based cartoon? A fucking turtle with a cannon on its back. That's perfect. It's about as perfect as Pikachu. In terms of like design and everything. And kind of more original than Snorlax, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But Pokemon phenomenon. not going anywhere for
No.
I don't know, ever. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to slow down. So
It is interesting to see, like when Akira Toriyama died, like people are like, oh my God, look at how Dragon Quest, look at how Pokemon ripped off Dragon Quest too. And it's like, yeah, you look at Charizard and you look at the Dragon design and Dragon Quest.
Of course.
And it's, and then of course I'm playing Dragon Quest 3 and we can talk about that I'm punching up, but like, that's what I'm thinking about as I'm playing Dragon Quest 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, man, even Pokemon would not exist without Dragon Quest. That's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Toriyama,
shout out. And they're all connected. If you look back to all the personnel from Toriyama to all the artists and designers and everybody, the powers that be at Nintendo, they were all connected at one point. They all came out of the same sort of media machine, 70s and 80s Japanese media machine. That's the other thing about Pokemon across media, right? It's got its tendrils and everything, like the actual, the actual material game, the TV shows and the films, like you guys said, the games, it makes its mark across all media. So, and it does it, in a mostly quality driven capacity. And you guys made a really good point too. There is really kind of a personality proxy if you look at the whole body of Pokemon for everybody. Like there's somebody who there's a Pokemon for everybody. This is the most like Dagan, this is the most like Brad, this is the most like Gene. Besides the ones you like the best, there's one that's the most like you, or like your girlfriend, or like your husband, or you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's just, and I don't even know if that's intentional or if that was just coincidental, but like it's a formula for printing money. It really is. Yeah. Like no other IP.
Yeah.
Just that appeal.
It's juggernaut.
All
right, boys. I'm
nice
satisfied
job
with that Pokemon topic. That was fun to dive in, especially with you guys, because you guys are older than me. So it's really cool to get that perspective. Because I remember my age and all, of course, some younger kids, but it's great to hear older groups talk about it. Because it's so fascinating just when it comes into people's lives and what it does.
I mean, to be able to talk about it three-way for an hour this many years in is testament.
Yeah.
Right. It's unbelievable. And I was afraid we already did this topic, actually, and we never did.
Yeah.
As far as I was like, we did a trading card topic.
Yeah. I looked it up. I was like, did we do Pokemon? Because I thought we did too. I had Deja Vu, but I didn't see it either.
No.
So
not that I'm aware of.
It probably just gets brought up a lot because it's so big.
That's actually good. That's a good point. Now, Gene, I'm going to move over to you. I think this is going to be an exercise in our pal Gene getting things off his chest, but I'll say no more. I'll let you take it away, my friend.
Yeah. So, and if for folks who want to skip ahead, I guess, I'm going to do the call-in thing, but I'm going to talk a little bit about politics, or a lot about politics, actually. Because, I remember, I watched last week's episode with Jeffy and Colin. I actually didn't finish it. But of course, I read the comments and I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, I wish Chris and Gene were here."
How was the overarching sentiment that you guys were missing?
Yeah. And it was nice to see, and I appreciate everyone's thoughts on that. And of course, I didn't do it because it's just so close to the election, and but I did kind of figure out like what I wanted to talk about, and it's just stuff that and maybe I can get to bounce some thoughts off you guys, but there's so much conversation about why Kamala lost, right? And the prevailing discourse right now is that she lost because of woke, basically. So right now we see, for example, James Carville right here. James Carville is the guy who coined the Democratic strategist, who coined "It's economy stupid," right? So he's been around for a long time. But then he says, Carville said, what killed the Democrats in these elections was a sense of dishonor among the electorate, which was the unfortunate events of what I would refer to as the woke area. We got beyond it, but the image stuck in people's minds that the Democrats wanted to defund the police, wanted to empty prisons. It created a sense of dishonor. And then you see the Telegraph saying how Kamala Harris's out-of-touch trans views cost Democrats the election. And also here's the New York Times saying Democrats and the Case of Mistaken Identity Politics by Maureen Dowd. And some Democrats, she writes, some Democrats are finally waking up and realizing that woke is broke. And one defense I always hear from media and also Democratic pundits is that Kamala Harris actually didn't run on identity politics. And I find that actually to be quite true. Here is an August 31st op-ed in the New York Times that says specifically Kamala Harris is breaking barriers. She just isn't talking about it. And the whole column is about how she is avoiding identity politics, where she is not running on "I'm with her," quote unquote, or whatever like that. Not even like female, like feminist politics. They really moved away from that, and they tried to move away from like the Hillary method, which was smart. And I think a lot of people saw that and they were like, "Oh, good. I'm glad that you're not leaning into the women thing, right?" Now that she lost, though, there's all this discourse about how she lost because of identity politics, and and it's true again that a lot of Democratic strategists, I like even my friend AOC was like, point me to a politician that said anything about trans issues or blah blah blah, and Jon Stewart, even on the Daily Show for his rant, he went on 7 minutes about how Democrats who won actually sounded a lot more Republican than anything. They were talking about identity issues, they were talking about guns, they were talking about border issues. And when you watch their ads, he had this whole montage of ads. It's all Democrats, but they all have rock music and country music going on, and they all sound like that they're all from Republicans. So I'm wondering, like, are people blaming the woke identity politics stuff on the discourse? Actually, because Kamala and the Democrats didn't say anything about identity politics, but everybody on fucking Twitter was, right? And it's like, is the way the electorate talking about politics turning people off on politics, because it does, obviously it does feel like that, the left is more about identity politics. I had somebody who was, it was a white guy, and he was like, "Oh my God, I've been referring to Kamala Harris as her first name, but I don't do that for Obama or Trump. I call them by their surnames. Why am I calling them by their first names, right?" And it's like, and so he thought it was like internalized like misogyny and sexism, and everyone was like, "No, dude, like that's just how they're branding it because Kamala's a unique name, and right. there's a ton of male candidates that we'll call by their first name, so it's not a gender issue, and it's like." But that was not a message that Kamala put out. It's like that person being nervous for no reason about identity politics, and it's like, no, that's not an issue that you have to worry about. So I'm just like wondering, like, what's going on? Like, why? Like are we punishing our politicians for the way the rest of us talk? That's kind of like where I'm at, because I don't really see anyone talking about how it's not about Kamala saying, talking about woke politics. It's about everyone else talking about woke politics, and then so it's like, people voted for Trump to punish people who always talk about woke politics all the time. Not so much, not so much Kamala. That's how I'm kind of interpreting the election now.
Possibly, yeah.
And it's like, I'm sure there are many other reasons why Trump won, right? I'm sure Trump won for a myriad of other reasons besides pissing off the libs or whatever like that. But it really does feel like a lot of it did seem like that, where it's like, I'm doing this just to piss off the people who always talk like this all the time. Yeah.
I think
that's kind of like where I've been at in terms of like, processing this election and trying to figure out like, the messaging and what went wrong, for Democrats and why they lost so badly, and of course, and Carville also says in the same article, that they should have been open primary and, maybe, and of course, really, I think, personally, and I well, even before the election, I thought if Kamala loses, the whole conversation is going to be about whether Biden should have stepped out earlier, or whether he should have ran at all. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
That's what happened.
You guys didn't talk about this last week, but it was kind of breaking as you guys were recording. But there were internal polls within the Biden administration that showed that he was going to be blown out. Like it was going to be like a 400 to 130 blowout. Like. It was going to be a much worse blowout than what Kamala did. So knowing that information, it was kind of malpractice for the Biden administration to just hang around and be like, oh no, we can stick through this. It's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then just waiting till the last minute and then only giving Kamala 107 days for us to even figure out how to pronounce her name, let alone even know who she is, And then
Right.
Colin was talking about how she's an empty shell and a vapid shell. A lot of people took offense to that, right? But his point is that like a lot of people don't really know what she's done.
Yeah.
Though,
They couldn't get to know her.
I think that's really the point. I live here. She's my vice president here in this town. I still don't know, and that's always historically been the case where we just don't know what the hell the vice president does. People forget that nobody knew. The polls show that nobody knew who the hell Joe Biden was during the Obama administration. He's
Right.
president now, but nobody knew who he was like 12 years ago. But everyone knows who he is now because he had a whole year or 4 years even to campaign.
Right.
He had that time. Kamala
Mhm.
didn't. So, I'm getting off topic of whatever, but that's just kind of like where my head is at right now in terms of the election. So, for people who are wondering what I'm thinking about, that's kind of what I'm thinking about right now. How the media talks about identity politics too.
Yeah.
Are we pushing it too much? Are we, Chris and I talk about this too. Chris Reagan and I talk about this too, about how we are using words that are from academia and just inserting it into the mainstream media discourse without even really properly analyzing it or communicating what these ideas mean. And that's why the word woke has been bastardized, and that's why nobody really even knows what DEI means. Because we just say DEI, people who are into DEI would just say that and assume that everyone knows what that means. But it's like, I've had many friends who be like, what does DEI actually mean? And it's like, no, it's actually a technical term, but it's just been a word that's just been, drained of meaning. And it's just like, how are we talking about this? And how are we, kind of, convincing people to understand that it's not what they think it is, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a word, like many words, that gets overused and becomes nothing, like you said. That happens to everything. The whole thing with like the culture aspect of it, I guess, Gene, and the woke aspect of this, because historically the Democrat side has been the quote unquote woke side throughout, for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a shift in the last couple of years of just people kind of being over that whole mindset, I would say, or whatever, how you want to call it, that way of life. It definitely like dominated. I remember like the early 2010s or something like that. Like when Gamergate first happened and all that kind of stuff. It was very much a huge topic, of course, but it's like the authoritative, I guess, perspective was kind of leaning in that towards things. You're seeing colleges start to do it. Every business was starting to kind of adopt those policies, like companies, everything. And I guess
a lot of it was like a reaction to like the racist crimes that happening against, for example, George Floyd and everything too, right?
Yeah. And it's like, I think they just went too far for some people, and they're just like, I'm kind of sick of this thing. I'm going to push back a little bit. And I think that's what did happen. And it's like, I'm sure, like you were saying, Gene, like her specifically, Kamala talking about it. Yeah, I don't think that was really something she talked about, because frankly, there was bigger questions, I think, that mattered more than that. But it is definitely, Gene, this thing is associated with this team kind of thing more right now. And people are pushing back on that.
And to your point too about people pushing back, it's not just people on the right. Bernie Sanders is specifically calling out identity politics. Just today, I Googled. There's a Hill article where Bernie Sanders is on the New York Times, The Daily, and he is specifically saying that the Democrats lost the election because they relied too much talking about race, gender, and sexual orientation, warning that candidates should not hang your hat on identity politics. Right. His point is that it's about the working class. It's about money. You
need to appeal to the average person more so. It's like, yeah, you could think that's all good and well, whatever. If you're some just random voter, you'd be like, but I want my groceries cheaper or something like that. I got to think of these stuff that relate to me more. And I think they were kind of not speaking to the everyday kind of person and more to a specific group, which is fine. You can totally do that. But I think they just lost a lot of what other people are trying to relate to and find out of their politician.
Well, here's the thing. Like he's saying, Trump attacked DEI policies, right? Because Democrats could not, and the left cannot properly explain how DEI can improve their lives or improve companies or whatever,
Right.
And I think that's another message that's really struggling, even in gaming too, about why this is valuable or whatever like that. And we need better examples to prove other than, Spider-Man does this, whatever like that, like we just need better examples to prove. Even Dragon Age Veilguard, which I beat last night and I love actually. I actually completely came around on the game. Oh my God. Like, and I can talk about it and punch it up on what we're playing. But even then, and I even like the gender identity stuff. But that being said, I understand that a lot of it still is not really like written all that well.
Not written
and
well.
It's like, man, like, you really got to handle this stuff like a little bit better, if you're going to present it more. And I'm sure they thought about that, but ultimately it doesn't resonate all that strongly unless you're already in that space, And so it's like, if you're, so like Dragon Age Veilguard, it feels like it is for those people, as opposed to like, oh, this is how it's like for to try to convince, like, for example, cisgender people about why these identity issues are important. And it just feels like it's just like talking among themselves, as opposed to like we're trying to talk to other people, right?
Yeah, it's like you can tackle those kind of themes in good ways. Like, we were talking about metaphor, Gene, and how like racism is such a huge part of that kind of game and everything like that, and acceptance. And it's just like, well, that game is just infinitely better written. That's why people like it, because it has good writing, actually. I haven't played Veilguard, but for what I've seen of it, Gene, I'm like, ooh, this is rough writing. Kind of surprisingly how rough it is in a lot of ways. So I think that can turn people off a lot of ways.
Yeah.
From the whole subject altogether.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's the working class. It's about money. It's about how can you improve these people's lives better, and
where people can relate to
that. I don't think, we're not going back was not a strong enough message. It sounded awesome, like in the rally, and it actually does sound like a good slogan. But when you think about it, though, it's like, I don't know, but what are we going toward? That's a real question.
Yeah, I think that was
If it's just going to be a continuation of the Biden administration, then it's like, well, I don't know. Like the last 4 years sucked, honestly. I think a lot of people did feel like the last 4 years sucked.
Yeah, I think that's a strong part why Gene is people just didn't know what we were going towards, whatever, under her leadership, possibly. So, like, I don't know, like that's what I've heard from many people. So it must be a common sentiment out there. But I am curious, yeah.
But the only reason why you would vote for her really is to be anti-Trump,
Sure.
And sure, that's a good enough reason for a lot of people, but clearly wasn't enough a good reason for most people.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So
yeah.
I mean, Gene explained it already. Like Jaffe and I and Kyle did our post-election conversation on Constellation last week. And you know what? There's absolutely exactly zero LSM listeners coming from my political commentary. But so I won't. But I think a lot of what you guys are saying is this is a matter of people, especially the vocal. I don't know. I used to say vocal minority, but it might not be the minority, taking their political sort of preconceived notions and their polarizations into this post-election aftermath discourse. That's a lot of what we're seeing on social media, especially. I'll tell you, though, for myself, my biggest takeaway of, this election as we settle in over the past week and a half since the outcome. And I mean, I'll tell it to you this way. And, I posted this thing, I guess the day after we found out what happened. Now, I, like everybody, voted a certain way. If you know me, you probably know which way I voted. Doesn't really matter. In fact, not knowing kind of speaks to the point of what I'm going to tell you and what I'm trying to illustrate. But if you listen to last week's episode, you know how I voted. But I thought it would be cool, and I thought it would be timely to post my favorite famous political speech, which was from RFK, the original RFK. And I posted this on social media on my Instagram, just a snippet of this speech. And it was kind of in the spirit of, how can we move on with optimism, right? Reach across the aisle, find some common ground, some compromise. I think a lot of people, maybe understandably, it's not my personality, but they're not even ready for that yet. They got to let the anger kind of subside and all that kind of thing, or, the disappointment, all that kind of thing, especially if you're on the losing side of things. But RFK, the original RFK, made this speech, apparently, which I only learned about maybe over the last couple of years, minutes after Martin Luther King was assassinated. He was in Indianapolis, 1968, and he found out that Martin Luther King was assassinated, and riots were starting to, sort of erupt all over the country. And he decided to put this impromptu speech together. He jumped in the back of a flatbed truck and stood and spoke and made this speech off the cuff to a crowd of black people after one of their most beloved leaders was just killed by a white man. And basically the gist of the speech was, I know how you feel. This happened to me too, citing the Kennedy assassination earlier in the decade. And we could move forward with violence and anger, or we could try to move forward together. And it turned out, if I'm not mistaken, that Indianapolis was only one of the only major cities not to riot directly because this man had the courage and the empathy to stand there and talk to these people. And I think it's one of the greatest political moments that we ever had. And a lot of people, sadly, he was assassinated himself, I think 2 or 3 months after he gave this speech. And this whole thing happened 5 or 6 years before I was even born. So it's one of those moments in history that I'm fascinated by, because there's a big part of me, not to sound overly pessimistic, but it's like, what happened to these leaders? These leaders that really seemed to give a shit, really seemed to be reaching across the aisle, making some strides for humanity, that really did seem to care. Not only were they great orators, but they really seemed to give a shit. You know what I mean? They were just made of a different fabric, it felt like. And I posted this thing up and people were liking it, right? And one person that I know, sort of a social media friend, had DM me and she was like, oh, too late for this. I guess JD Vance had already called Kamala a piece of trash or something. And I was like, this is what I'm talking about. What happened to winning and losing with class? It's literally like the first thing I learned in T-ball when I was 3 years old. Like, what happened to sort of winning and losing with grace, being a bad winner and versus being a good winner, being a good loser. You know what I mean? Like, why can't adults embrace this thing of like, you go online and you see on both sides, the badgering, the belittling, the bragging, the bitterness, people that feel like they were on the winning side, rubbing it in people's faces, people that are losers, kind of. What happened to moving ahead with optimism? Helene was even telling me, my wife's a high school teacher. She was even saying that students are getting into it post-election, mind you. I guess like, oh, haha, your guy lost, or, haha, your guy, my guy won, and your guy was, lost, and you know what I mean? Told you so, that type of thing. It's the sort of shockwaves that are emanating out is really interesting. And it's just, to me, it's like, why can't we just go on and just kind of give it the old college try and say, you know what, you guys won fair and square, or you know what I mean? I wanted it to go the other way. It didn't, but let's give it. Now we're all in this together. You know what I mean? That the whole idea, I know this country just from the political discourse leading up to the election, on social media, on mainstream media, all of that. I just don't think this country's ready for it, but I'm wondering when we're going to get back to that. Can we ever get back to that semblance of, I was talking about it last week. I remember my grandparents who were both like rabid Democrats, very blue collar people. And I guess old school Democrats in the capacity of they grew up in a different time. So very 80s style Democrat, if you know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember them, not even to say my parents and other people, other adults in my life that kind of modeled their behavior as I was growing up. Like, I remember when they won or they lost, like the next day, there was, you know what I mean? It was already, people are already settling into the result.
Yeah.
Win or lose, lose,
Yeah.
or draw. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, all right, you know what I mean? We lost. Sometimes you win some, you lose some. That seemed to be the attitude. At some point that changed, you know, and that's really my biggest takeaway over the last week and a half is how astounded I am that, you know, people, you know, can't be gracious whether they won or lost.
Right.
You know, and I just feel like that's my 6-year-olds knew that. You know what I mean? And it's not even, I think we were all taught that. So what happened? What got lost in the wash?
I don't know.
That's been the biggest thing for me. That's been the biggest eye opener for me. And I can't even say I'm surprised. I think it's just more frustration of like, when can we get back to the business of just getting along? We're going to have different opinions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have different socioeconomic backgrounds, different racial backgrounds, we live in different, you know, geographical regions. We have different histories. We have different careers, right?
Yeah.
Different situations, different family structures, whatever. But so there's going to be differences, but how can we just kind of like, where are those olive branches? You know what I mean? Like, how do you reach across the aisle? How do you?
I think it's Trump. We just haven't had anyone else besides Trump. And Trump is a sore loser, right?
Sure.
He is not somebody who can, you know, just deal with that. He is somebody who does like respond like meanly, you know, because but my YouTube algorithm is so underhanded in that now it's starting to surface old debate footage of Obama and Romney.
Oh wow!
And and you watch those and you see all the comments, and all the comments are like, "Oh man, remember that? Like, this feels like a whole different like era, or like it feels like I'm watching ancient history, or it feels like I'm watching an alternate timeline of politics because and that was just 12 years ago, right? It really just happened under Trump, where Trump is willing to throw out insults, you know. Like, I give Trump a lot of credit, but you know, here I'm giving him credit for really ratcheting up that tenor. I think if Trump left, I don't think JD Vance would be talking the way he does. You know, love him or hate him, I think he is much more moderate person than Trump is. You know,
yeah,
he is simping for Trump. You know, so he is becoming more Trump-like because he is under Trump. But I think ultimately it's probably going to be in a Mike Pence situation. Probably, you know, that's what I'm thinking. You know, and also this whole thing with Elon and Trump hanging out together, I give them like 2 months.
Really?
Yeah, I give them 2 months. This is not going to last.
Interesting.
This is not going to last because it never lasts. It's never happened. Trump doesn't have a loyal person. Bannon left. Steve Bannon and him fought, right? And Bannon was the architect of his campaign. Elon just kind of hung out, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think that's going to last because Trump is toxic. He is, you know. There's a lot of good reasons to vote for him. I'm sure. I agree with that, but he is a person who does feed into this atmosphere. He is a person, you know. Ultimately, I will never forget him as a guy who lied about birtherism. You know, who not only lied that Obama was not born in Hawaii, but he lied about sending. This is why I have beef with Trump personally, because he told people back in 2011 or whatever that he was sending agents to Hawaii to check on the birth certificate, right? So me being a reporter there was like, okay, well, I'll wait for these agents then.
Forgot about
so
that.
I hung out outside the room where Obama's birth certificate was. There's only one way in and one way out of that room. You know, I just hung out at the bench there for weeks waiting for these so-called Trump secret agents to show up and inspect the birth certificate. He never sent them. He never sent anybody. I was there the whole time. He never sent anybody. So he does lie, you know. He straight up lied right then, you know.
Right.
So that's what for people who hate Trump. We got 4 more years. That's it. You know.
Yeah.
That's the way you have to look at, like, that's the thing. That's the energy, Gene. That's right. And I would feel comfortable saying this if everybody kind of brought a little bit of effort into it. Like if Americans could just kind of reach across the aisle, not even stand hand in hand in a kumbaya sense, but just give a modicum of effort and say, I would be comfortable saying it's going to be fine.
Mhm.
No matter if you're on the losing or winning side of this, everything is going to be okay, but just kind of contribute to the positivity. And it's not just like in a manifesting sense or some kind of magical regard, but like, give a little bit of yourself, be optimistic, be hopeful, give effort, lend your talents, whatever, and just say like, okay, I think it would have been better for me and mine if things had gone my way, for instance. But since it went the other way, how can we make the best of it? You know what I mean? And bring that sort of energy. That was the thing when I was evoking, the people that I grew up with, the adults I grew up with. Like there was never an energy of like, okay, now all is lost. If it doesn't go blue for me or red for me, you know what I mean? It's like, when did that happen where the sky is falling just because you lost the election? It's not. It's going to be, it's going to be okay. That's the thing.
Look,
I think that's the thing.
I was here in DC when Hillary lost, right? I saw the streets the night Hillary lost.
Yeah,
there were white people just like lying down in the sidewalk, just like just completely horizontal, just like like that, and like people walking around like a zombie. It was like 9/11 without like any destruction or anything.
Right.
It really did look like a mental, spiritual 9/11 for people where they're just or whatever. And it's a little bit less like that now, but like I still get that where like, I had someone come up to me and, that's, to your point about positivity, right? I completely agree because someone came up to me and they were like, Gene, how are you? Like in all earnestness, right? And I was like, pretty good. I just said like immediately, like and like in that same tone, like pretty good, and they're like, oh, okay, and like I disarmed them by how cheery I was, right? And they're like, oh, everything going good? I was like, yeah, pretty good actually, because you have to think of it from my specific, unique perspective. I thought I was gonna die 2 years ago,
Right.
So the idea that I stayed alive long enough to see the results of this election. Yeah, I feel pretty good, man. I lived through 4 years of Trump, so God willing, I'll do it again, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, definitely. I mean, you can't throw your hands up in despair. You could do your part. Continue to stand for what you believe in.
Yeah.
Win or lose.
Also,
keep going.
Going back real quick to Sanders and identity politics. Sanders was saying this about identity politics after Hillary lost, actually, too. So he was warning. He said back then, it's not good enough for someone to say, I'm a woman, vote for me. That's not good enough. What we need is a woman who has the guts to stand up to Wall Street, to insurance companies, to drug companies, to fossil fuel industry, blah, blah, blah.
That's his whole thing.
So he was saying that back then, but the Democrats and everyone else and the media had a different strategy where they're like, no, we got to lean harder into identity politics. And this is where we're at now.
Yeah.
So.
Dagan, I want to talk about like this animosity between the two parties or whatever. Mostly, it's like it's something that I noticed personally. Maybe just because I was getting older, I noticed it like the 2000s, kind of like the Bush era and stuff like that. That's when I really started seeing it like happen to like people I knew, like my friend group, my age, stuff like that. And it started to get really ugly. Like I remember when I was younger, no one had any problem saying who they were voting for. And it was just like, oh, we don't agree. That's cool. Kind of thing like that. But now it is like so tribalistic or something like that. It's like blasphemy almost, that kind of thing.
Word.
It's like life and death going on with these types of situations. And it is sad because like, yeah, you can disagree and stuff like that. But I think like you were saying, you should try to find some common ground between each of us and try to work on things like, sorry, humanity's never going to agree on anything 100%. That's just the way it is. And it's always going to be that way. But you got to try to work with the hand you're dealt and do the best you can in the circumstances you're dealing with. So it is a shame, like everyone's got their own stories and their own backstory about all this kind of stuff. But I wish people could just show some empathy or whatever, or understanding, try to understand. Even if you don't agree with them, try to see where they're coming from, their standpoint, try to be cool about it. It's fine if you guys don't agree. I wish we could just get to that point again where it's okay to not agree with each other on certain things, instead of just being like, I can never talk to you again. I'm like, people disowning their families and stuff like that.
Man,
it's so sad, man. It's
so
ridiculous.
Ugly. We gotta move on.
You don't want to see
that
kind of stuff happen. It's really unfortunate. So
yeah,
I don't know, man.
Agreed.
Just lead by example, like you're saying. That's all you can really do, and hope for the best.
Absolutely,
And do your best.
Dude. Amen. I mean, that's the thing. Yes, stand for something. Yes, passion. I get it. Like, stick to that. Don't waver from that. But yeah, that energy of like, well, I'll put it to you this way. Honestly, in my life, I have it's very, when it comes to friends and family, it really, all sides of the spectrum. I love people of every political stripe, it seems like. Some are hardcore conservative, some are somewhere in between, some are, super far to the left. And I love them regardless of whatever differences I have with them. But just coincidentally for me in my life, it just so happens that a lot of the more conservative people that I love are the more obnoxious ones. And I know they're going to be bad winners, which almost makes me want to root against them because their attitude in winning is so deplorable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell them that point blank, like, dude, like, or dudette, as it turns out, like you can't, they're going to be the ones on social media. They're going to be the ones, especially on Facebook and my family, that are going to be rubbing it. They're going to be rubbing the salt in the wound. And I know that. And I know there are people on the left like that too, but it just so happens the people on the right in my life are generally the more obnoxious ones.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's kind of what I was touching at too. It's like the responsibility of the electorate to be able to uphold discourse and to be able to present these views and your parties in the right and correct light, But we all seem to have we don't seem to think that we have any responsibility at all, and another thought that I've had is how social media has democratized power, right? You think about the JD Vance couch fucking joke, right?
Right.
That came from a very, very small shit posting account of like just over 1,000 followers. Yet that person was able to just create this whole narrative about JD Vance having sex with couches, to the point where Tim Walz said it at a rally, and it got all the way up to NSL. So that's kind of like what I'm trying to touch at right now, is that like with social media and like political discourse, like we all each have like taking on a responsibility that I don't think we understand really about how we talk about politics and how we represent our own sides to each other, right? Because we each individually have our own power to represent our own views and the views of the people that we're trying to represent or we're trying to speak for, I feel like everyone's absolved. Everyone feels like they're absolved of that. It's like, no, I'm going to talk about the way I want to talk about it, whatever, not realizing, hey, you might be damaging the way people think about your side,
That's a great point, Gene. Yeah, this really comes down to win or lose with your own dignity and allow other people their dignity. That's it. That's it. And
it's kind of like what Colin's saying about Grums, for example, right? Like, like Colin and Grums might even agree about like 20% of things, right? But the way Grums approaches topics is very vitriolic and toxic, and he, well, of course, he lies too, right? So that's the issue. It's just that he has no responsibility for he just doesn't feel any responsibility to uphold any kind of information or present his arguments in a fair or correct light, or one that would bring anyone else onto his side other than just saying, how wokies are evil or blah, 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 and are Nazis or whatever, It's ridiculous.
It seems like that's ending. Like, do you guys remember there was a certain video game outlet, this is only a matter of years ago, that were, basically came out and said, like, if you're a Republican, if you don't feel like we do, we don't even want you as fans. Like it feels like that sort of hyperbolic sentiment is slowly subsiding, where it's like, if you know, which is kind of like Orwell-esque to me. It's like you only want a certain type of people, like, and I know damn well everybody that feels like that has people in their own friend or family circles that don't feel like them. That's just the nature of life. Not everybody you associate with feels like you. So I feel like that's largely ending, which is good, but it's, you know, it's coming to it's evolving slower than I would like. The Elon thing is interesting, what Gene says about that, because he seemed to have very high stakes in Trump winning the election because he was so afraid of what the Harris administration would do for free speech and social media and all that kind of thing. Now that Trump won, what are the stakes? Elon kind of got what he wanted. So it's an interesting scenario that you paint, Gene. I wonder if that romance does last. That is an interesting one.
It's not going to last.
Those
two egos, all you need to do is ask Trump, hey, Trump, how do you feel? You're the most powerful billionaire on this planet. So how does it feel like to get advice from Elon? And Trump would be like, fuck Elon, you know? All you need to do is just poke at his ego, and it'll be over, and he'll feel really, really insecure. He'll be mad about the way the media is portraying their bromance or whatever, and it's going to be over real quick.
You know what the other thing is that occurs to me? I haven't seen a lot of this yet. Laugh at yourself. It's okay to laugh at yourself. It's okay to laugh at your side. It's okay to lose, you know, find some humor in the winning, find some humor in the losing, whatever. Like, find some comedy in it. It's okay. It's therapeutic. You know, it doesn't all have to be so serious all the time. We're all worried about something. We all stand for something. We all have issues that matter to us. We're concerned about this and that. Everybody's, you know, and we find a lot of common ground in that. But, you know, it's also like maybe a little levity might help. You know, when there's, like my wife comes home. I mean, she teaches at a very good public high school. These are good kids. These are high income kids. You know what I mean? These are well-adjusted kids largely and everything like that. When you have 16 and 17-year-olds that aren't even old enough to vote coming into school and getting into near fistfights over politics, that's a problem. You know, as Brad was saying, like, hey, this changes he's seen in his circles out there.
But that's just the tribalism that is, you know, and you talk about kids fighting, you know, all these kids know is a world that's been online, and especially in the last 4 years of being locked up inside.
Very true.
They've been raised on online stuff. They've been raised on views that they only see on online. They've been raised on whatever the TikTok algorithm feeds them, you know. People are fucking shaping their lives over what some stupid TikTok told them, right? and affirm their own beliefs. So then when you actually leave outside that bubble and you actually have to confront other people, you can't just downvote and dislike them. What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. You know? So, and then these fucking maladjusted, socially awkward kids don't know how, and the generation don't know how to interact with other people. So it just ends up becoming fighting, or they just have an anxiety attack and just melt down or whatever, you know. We have a real problem on our hands in terms of how we've raised the next generation, you know. I've said this to journalism conventions, right? Like, and people don't believe me, but I was like, we've lost 2 generations already. It's over already. The Gen Z is cooked, you know. We're done. They don't trust us either. So what are we going to do about, you know, the 5-year-olds? We need to start going back again to like what I was talking about Nintendo, right? We got to start thinking like Nintendo, you know, because we got to stop trying to cater to millennials, because millennials are already goddamn set in our ways, you know. It's the millennials in Kamala's campaign that told her not to go on Joe Rogan because they said that Joe Rogan was problematic. So it's like already locked in the millennial mindset, or the Gen Z mindset too. It was Gen Z staffers too that was saying that too. They're already locked in politically. It's over, you know. They already set in their ways. So
that's so interesting. So
you know,
you think that there's just some unwavering, they're not even going to change when they get old, like, you know,
no,
the typical,
they're not going to.
That's
It's only
it.
going to get worse. You know,
That's so interesting.
we've already lost a generation. You know, Gen Z. There's no belief. I certainly have no belief that the kid. I fucking hate it whenever there's like one cool thing that a young person does, and then someone will tweet out, "Oh, the kids are all right." 120,000 likes.
There's hope.
You know, there's hope for kids. Yeah. No, there's fucking not. No, there's not. You know, your kids might be fine, you know, but think about the whole generation. No, it's over. It's over. It's cooked. We have to, the education system already failed them. It's already failed our generation. And we need to think about, you know, the kids that can barely talk right now. That's the real issue right now. But you know, that's me if I was president.
Yeah. So. Listen, all we got to do is get Pokemon involved in politics. You can have the candidates battle in Pokemon.
Exactly. You know what? Hillary was right on the money. It really was about Pokemon go to the polls, maybe, you know? Yeah. Like, we were just talking about how Pokemon is a great Trojan horse for like augmented reality.
I love
Pokemon
that.
would be a great Trojan horse for like the virtual reality metaverse.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we're able to get Pokemon, blue. If we're able to get Power World as a democratic thing, or whatever, then yeah,
let them settle in like Valorant or something. All right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I'm the guy who covered Kamala Harris having her Fortnite map on there too. Yeah. But that goes to show like how desperate the campaign was like towards the end of the race. Like they realized that they were really losing the young men vote or whatever. So that's why they had, you know, I did the stories about, you know, how they were advertising on IGN, and this was like 3 weeks before the election, you know. So I think they were
they were advertising on IGN. I didn't know that. They were
advertising on IGN. They were like, watch out for Project 2025 and Trump is such a racist or whatever. Trump hates Asians because like there's a lot of Asian people that go out and end up on IGN. So it was all about like how Trump doesn't like Asian people.
Man, that's funny.
So it really was, again, like anti-Trump, anti-identity politics type of messaging, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, well, Trump hates Asians, but are Asians living better under him, though? You know? Mm. I don't care about what he feels like, but what is he actually doing? You know? That's the important thing. I don't know. And Kamala's half Asian, too. You know? She's half Indian. Right. So it's like, that didn't even work out, you know? It doesn't work out.
Backfired.
You know, it doesn't work out at all. You know, you need to just have a good message. You know, Obama had a message of hope and bipartisanship, which was a lie too. But you know, but that's what we voted on. You know, and that's the thing. Like these, if the Democrats want to win, they need to start fucking lying more, man. You know, that's how you win. Just fucking lie more. Trump won because he lied all the time. You know, Obama won because he lied all the time. You know.
Surprise! Politicians lie.
Yeah,
that was always it.
Just lie more and just win, and then you can do whatever the fuck you want. You know, there's no cost to lying. You know, as long as nobody can prove that you're lying. You know, just lie. Lie is like lying is like a magic spell. You know,
it's the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
How did that change?
I'm surprised that they decided that they needed to be honest and integral and whatever that. And also, like my last thing to your point, Dagan, about what you were saying about, you know, all your friends on the right like celebrating or whatever.
Yeah,
like that's the thing though, is like people on the right are very, very united. Unite the right. You know, there is no intra-political or intra like racial like clash. On the right or whatever.
You're right,
you know? Everyone on the right, Mexican, black, white, they're all lockstep on the same messaging, whatever it might be. You know, on the left side, nobody agrees. You know, we're always like, oh, we'll begrudgingly do this for Kamala, whereas on the right, it's like, oh, fuck yeah, Trump. You know,
is it because the left is a broader spectrum?
It is a broader spectrum. Yeah. You know,
I never thought of that before.
And that's why, like, there's this whole discourse about, like, oh, you know, the left needs a Joe Rogan, right? But, you know, Joe Rogan is too much of a free thinker, where he'll allow all types of thought. You know,
sure.
And that's why he's so popular. And that's hard to have on the left, because it's like when someone says something crazy, your inclination will be to correct them or to tell them that they're wrong, versus continuing to have a curious conversation about that thought process, really, and that's what Joe Rogan, that's the appeal of Joe Rogan, is that he is curious to a fault, but that's what makes the show fascinating,
Yeah, and he's the equal opportunity dude. I think we talked about that last week. I mean, between him, guys like Tim Dillon, of course, Elon, like they have you saw YouTubers, / podcasters have a huge impact on, an election, which is not a first, but I think it was a first to that scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure you're used to dealing with that, Gene, for working at like an actual newspaper thing. It's like,
sure,
you're competing with YouTubers and all that kind of stuff now.
Oh, totally. Yeah, everyone even at the DNC, because the DNC had 200 credentialed creators, because they really, mm-hmm. both sides really understood the value of creators.
Yeah.
But it's just that, and Hassan Piker, the biggest leftist Twitch streamer, has said that he feels very lonely about it, because he's really the only person that's kind of talking about the things he talks about. Whereas, there's just a much broader support on the right, for the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro's outfit, to the Blaze and Glenn Beck's outfit and everything.
Yeah. It seems like the people on the left, like you're saying, are fighting with each other.
Mm-hmm,
like think of Destiny and Hassan, just like
exactly.
always fighting each other.
Yeah, like Destiny and Hassan are always fighting with each other, and they both voted for the same person, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But they fucking hate each other, and they're so fucking toxic to each other. But you don't see Ben Shapiro and Tim Cass fighting, really. You might have a little spat here and there or whatever like that, but right. it's not like an ongoing conflict or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, the messaging on the right is just far more coherent and simple and united. So
mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. Anyways, that's kind of like whatever is off my chest. So I don't know.
Okay. How do you feel? You feel
I'm
better?
satisfied. So
okay. All right. Yeah, that was a good. I don't mind talking about politics. I just don't think I'm particularly very good at it. So
sure.
It's nice to have a political voice on. And I think Colin and Jeff were planning on doing another one come January 20th.
I might. Well, I think I'll hop on that. Well, actually, no, January 20th. That's way too close to the induction.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they wait a week.
But everything I talked about, I'd be interested to see what Colin and Jaffe say too, especially Jaffe, because Jaffe is like very much like bought into the messaging of the left, or at least the liberal media too.
Sure.
He watches The View for some reason. I don't know why.
The View? I didn't know people still watch that show.
I don't know why, but he does though. He's tapped into that shit.
I didn't know he watched The View.
He knows more about it than most people do. So I'm like, why do you know exactly what everything they say there?
That's hilarious.
That's funny.
I love that, dude. All right, well, listen. That topic being said, I think I'm going to wrap it up with something a little unconventional today, but hopefully fun. I have put together a little pop culture / nerd culture quiz for you guys. Okay. And it's a smattering of topics. I tried to cover a little bit of TV, a little bit of movies. We got some video games in there, of course, music, some other stuff. Just 10 questions. And I think how we're going to have to do it, we can't do the shout out thing when we do these types of things on the show. We tend to jot it down on a little piece of paper, a Post-it note, a dry erase board, whatever you have. Write down your answer, hold it up, and I got 10 questions plus a bonus.
Okay,
and I'll keep score, and we'll pit you guys against each other for your pop culture / nerd culture knowledge. And again, this is no one particular discipline. This is kind of a broad spectrum of pop / nerd culture. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, yeah.
So if you guys have a pen or a dry erase board or something,
yes, sir.
I'll ask the question.
Open. Is that good or no?
And I'll give. What do you have? Whatever you have to hold up.
Google Doc. I have a Google Doc open. Do I need to show it to screen?
We'll just do the honor system, Gene.
We can do the honor system as long as you don't shout out.
It's fine.
Okay. All right. First question, you guys. All right. According to the original plan, which famous superhero was supposed to eventually lose his powers and walk away from superhero-dom, essentially ending the comic altogether. Which famous superhero is supposed to eventually lose his powers according to the original script, according to the original blueprint?
Wow. I've never heard of this. That's a great question, though. I like this question, though, Dagan. This is cool.
I never knew this before I found this question. It's pretty fascinating. I never knew this before.
Walk away from it. Okay.
And you guys let me know when you're both ready, and then I'll keep
ready.
score here with my red pen and my
ready.
green pen. All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, should we do a 3, 2, 1, or should we just, we'll just, if you guys are going to call out, we'll take turns. So I'll let Brad call out on this one first.
I just put, I don't know if you can see, but I wrote Superman.
Oh, good guess. All right, Gene, what about you?
I wrote Spider-Man.
All right.
That was going to be my second one, too.
It is Spider-Man.
Nice. Good guess.
All right. Gene gets one.
I figured because Spider-Man walking away from his trash can and everything like that, but yeah. And also Spider-Man's the dumping idea for all kinds of stupid fucking ideas too.
They're always like, "Oh, I'm tired of being Spider-Man all the time." Meanwhile, Batman's like addicted to it. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Spider-Man's the guy who's always fucking complaining about being Spider-Man, and Batman is like, "No, I gotta do this."
That's a really good point. That's actually a solid point.
And Superman, that's where I was like, yeah, Superman is the other character who has all the dumb ideas.
Yes.
But I feel like they probably would not want to get rid of his superpowers. So it's like,
sure, yeah.
So there's Superman and Spider-Man that are the victims of like all the dumbest ideas of comics. So.
Yeah. I guess Superman's too all-American, I guess. He's like the all-American superhero, maybe.
Too iconic, yeah. You can't like get rid of those powers. Whereas like Spider-Man is like, oh well, is he like he's so relatable though, right? So he'll be losing his powers would be relatable.
He's just some dumb kid from Queens or whatever.
No, it just means he'll stop being Spider-Man and we'll stop being.
So, yeah,
there's like 4 Spider-Mans, so who cares? It's fine.
That's
another one will take over.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? It's like anybody can be Spider-Man. It's like, okay, well,
Okay.
They threw everything. They threw the kitchen sink at Spider-Man over the air. So apparently, I don't know the era. Comic book nerds would know. Steve Ditko, Spider-Man. His original blueprint was for Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man number 50, to have Peter Parker just completely, his powers are zapped for whatever reason. And he walks away, and I guess essentially that would have been the end of the book. So I guess Stan Lee thought better of it.
Yeah.
Hence the billions of dollars that have been made since.
Oh yeah, see that's the cover of Amazing Spider-Man 50. Spider-Man No More. Yeah, that was gonna be the arc.
How crazy is that?
That's crazy. Well, I mean, like this is back in the day when like there's no IP, right? So they're not thinking about this Spider-Man universe, right? They're like, we have this character, and this character will just end or whatever. Right? It's much simpler times,
Definitely. No crystal ball. All right, this one was a fascinating one. You guys maybe this is easy, but I didn't know this. Which social media platform has the most users, I guess, as of right now?
Most users.
Which social media platform has the most users? And I'll give you a hint.
Are these like United States users?
This is global.
Oh, global.
As far as I know. And apparently it's 3.6 billion monthly active users as of right now, or at least the statistic I saw.
These are good questions. I like these, Dagan.
Yeah, these are kind of fun too. And like we can talk about them each too. Like,
definitely talking points for sure.
Yeah. All right, I got my guess. It's a guess.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Brad, you ready? Okay, Gene, you go first this time.
I initially wrote TikTok first, but I'll say Facebook. I feel like that's a little bit more conservative, but I feel like TikTok is probably the right answer still.
I also wrote Facebook.
Facebook, you guys both got it correct.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Boomer
still
book,
Facebook.
dude.
Yeah.
They love it.
Never been on it personally. The statistic, though, this blew my hair back. 37% of the world's population.
That's crazy.
That's insane to me.
That's part of Zuckerberg's plan. Zuckerberg, started having Facebook available in like third world countries. And Zuckerberg's plan was to have Facebook tied to the entire internet. That it was going to be like a second version of the internet. So and that probably still part of it, part of his plan. But that's a consequence of it. Is that there's just a shit ton of people like logged in, like signed into Facebook right now. So it's like a social. It's more than a social security number. That's crazy.
Incredible.
That's insane. Yeah.
And co-opted by the boomers. to a degree that no one
yes.
ever expected.
Yeah, I don't use
loves it.
Facebook anymore. Do you guys use Facebook at all?
No,
Brad, do you
never
use
have.
Facebook at all? No, right?
No, my mom
Did
does.
you use
She loves
Facebook at all before? Back then, you had
when
to
it
use
came out. When it first came out, I did. Everyone was on Facebook when it first came out, or whatever.
I got on Facebook back in 2008, like 2007, really, really early.
Yeah.
This was when you could not sign up for Facebook regularly. You had to have a .edu college address.
Right.
And I actually emailed my Cal State University of Fullerton right here to ask them if they can give me an alumni.edu address. And they're like, why? I was like, there's this new site out right now called Facebook.
Hell yeah.
And I really got to sign up for it because I was really, really fascinated by it. Because, you know, the shitty thing about Facebook is that, like, I had the idea for Facebook like a long, long time ago. Where I was like, oh, it should be like a Friendster, but it has photo albums and there's like a timeline of like activities that you can do and everything like that. And as soon as I saw Facebook, I was like, that's what I'm looking for. That's the service I'm looking for. And I was like, motherfucker stole my idea, not knowing that he actually stole the idea from his own roommates. But yeah, I really wanted to get on Facebook. It was a huge thing for me. And I signed up really early.
Wow, it's been that many years. Holy cow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
No signs of going anywhere.
Twitter.
That's
I've been on Twitter for 16 years as of a couple days ago.
Wow, really?
Damn.
16 years, yeah.
That's incredible. But you have the following to show for it. I will say that.
I do.
You definitely do.
I was an early adopter, but I mean, that's the thing. Like, you know, like I was talking about Foursquare, but, you know, I was a social media guy. I was a social media guy for the Washington Post. So I signed up for, you know, and follow me on Blue Sky, please, everyone.
Oh, that's the new. Did you move over
there? It's
a
much nicer platform for sure than Twitter. It's exactly like Twitter. But I'm the Gene Park that signed up for that's Gene Park on every social platform. So the fun, you know, and I don't know if I mentioned this story on LSM before, but when I moved to DC, one of the first places I went to was a Korean restaurant. But my new coworkers were taking me there, right? And then we were all eating and having fun. And then the manager came over, and young guy, good looking guy, right? But he saw me and he was like, "You!" Like he had white in his eyes, and I was like, he pointed right at me. He was like, "It's you! It's been you this whole time." I'm like, "Wait, what?" And I just moved here. I'm sorry, right? And he's like, "You're Gene Park, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You're the guy who signs up for everything. I'm Gene Park."
What?
So
awesome.
yeah, I like every Gene Park in the world is mad because I'm the guy that squats on Gene Park to handle.
You get there first.
I get there first all the time. There's an influencer who's like again another really buff Asian dude. That's the theme for this episode, really buff Asian dudes. But it's really like buff Asian comedian dude, and he's like a TikToker influencer. He's the kind of guy who like goes up to like people on the street, like on Venice Beach, and like with the little lav mic and like yelling at them, asking questions like, "Hey, what's your body count, girl?" You know, or like, "Would you suck this guy's dick?" or whatever like that. Like he does that stuff. But his name is Gene Park. But on Instagram, he has to go by Gene W. Park because I took his name. And then all these like other like Instagram models and hot girls are always like tagging like me instead of him because they think that he's Gene Park. And that's how we ended up becoming friends because we're both Gene Park and now we both know each other.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How is the saturation over at Blue Sky? Is that building pretty quick?
Got 1 million new users in the last week. So,
it's going quick.
We're really, it's so much nicer there. It's night and day when you post like the same tweet on Blue Sky versus Twitter. Where like on Blue Sky they're like, "Oh, that's interesting that you like Dragon Age Vilgar. Like what do you like about it?" Or, "Oh, wow, you really turned around on this game." Whereas on Twitter it's like fucking woke or sell out or blah 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 or fuck you. How could you like that game? It's like all like immediate negativity versus Blue Sky where there's like a little bit more interest in conversation and curiosity, which is like what Twitter was before, you know?
Yeah. Well, okay. It doesn't get too popular because you'll get the same thing there.
I mean, that's the thing. Like I have no. You're right, Brad. Like I share that same cynicism because like it's like I'm enjoying it now because it's nice now. But if it does get hugely popular, then eventually like everything becomes garbage.
That's what always happens. Yeah.
Eventually. So
if you're on there, enjoy it
Good
you
luck.
can.
Yeah, so that's why I'm on there and I'm enjoying it now. But it's only because like I'm taking a break from what Twitter is now, and like it's like okay, well we'll get there eventually, Blue Sky. But for now, it's okay.
All right, guys, number 3. And I hope this one's right because I feel like there could be more than one answer, but I think this is the ultimate answer. But out there, correct me if I'm wrong. I've been known to get these things wrong, even though I do my research. Guys, and I didn't know this one. Which actor or actress has played the most different roles in various superhero movies, aka who has played the most different superheroes across live action movies? Across different live action movies, who's played the most superheroes of any actor or
I don't know,
actress?
dude.
Did they play the superhero?
Yes, in this case, yes, every time. And superhero could be, but think in broad terms. Doesn't always have to be like the caped crusader. Superhero, let's just say hero. Could be, it could even cross over with this particular thing, not to get too hinty, but it could be even kind of anti-hero.
I have a guess. I have a guess
too,
here.
yeah. We'll see.
All right. You guys, Brad, it's your turn to go first.
Yeah. I wrote Chris Evans.
Okay.
I know he was Captain America and the Human Torch, but other than that, I don't know.
Oh, I forgot about Human Torch. You're right about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Gene,
That's
what
cool.
about you? What did you say this week?
I chose Michael Keaton, which I think is about the same amount of superheroes.
Ooh,
I
that's a
saw him on the
great pick.
list. Apparently, the correct answer, you guys, and you guys may even know better, is Ryan Reynolds.
Oh,
And I'll explain.
Oh,
yeah.
Green Lantern,
Green Lantern.
Yeah.
That's right.
title character.
Deadpool.
X-Men Origins Wolverine, he did play sort of phase 1 Deadpool. He played Wade Wilson. Apparently, he played Hannibal King in Blade Trinity. I didn't know anything about that.
Oh,
And then, of course, went on to greatness with Deadpool. So we technically be 3.5 if you count Wade Wilson and Deadpool as the same character. So like apparently that's the most.
I completely forgot about Green Lantern. So,
yeah, everybody does.
Everyone did, and he's thankful.
It's forgettable.
Yeah. I'm sure he's thankful that we all forgot about it. But
yeah.
He's a confounding one.
I haven't watched the Deadpool movies because I don't like Deadpool as a character.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. I get that. He's very Borderlands energy.
Yeah,
yes, that's well said.
It's too much. I never like characters in comics that broke the fourth wall. I'm like, what? Like shut the fuck up. Like, don't do this.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
you don't.
I like it in Looney Tunes, right? I obviously love it in Looney Tunes, but like, it's not really like my thing in comic books, you know. And I sometimes it was cool. Like She-Hulk did it a lot. You know, I liked it when She-Hulk did it, but like I just didn't like Deadpool. I just thought Deadpool was always kind of cringe. So
yeah, they go in for fourth wall breaking for sure. You know what's funny about Ryan Reynolds though? He's confounding because he was around a long time before I feel like he found a role like Deadpool where it was like, this guy's made for this role.
Right.
You know what I mean? He was always kind of marginal until Deadpool. I'm happy for him because he seems like a genuinely cool dude.
Oh, I love Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, he seems like a really cool guy. You know.
But I don't. You know what's funny? If I saw 2, I don't even remember it. I love the first one. I don't even know if I saw Deadpool 2.
Third one you should watch with Wolverine. Wolverine's great in it.
I wanted to watch that, but I feel like so much of it has already gotten spoiled for me because everyone's fucking posting clips and like talking about shit. So it's like, man,
it was very all over the place. Yeah, I'm an old Image Comics guy dating back, and I still don't know if Rob Liefeld was super involved with these movies or not. Was he? Like, was he a technical advisor? Was he on set sort of advising? Was he co-write? I really don't know. I felt completely out of touch with.
Oh, that's right. Deadpool is Deadpool a Liefeld creation?
I think it's a Liefeld thing. It's definitely not a McFarlane thing. But I think he created. I want to say he created Deadpool. I'm gonna research that because I'm gonna get a lot of people yelling at me if I'm wrong about that.
Deadpool. Yeah, right. He co-created Deadpool. You're right.
I don't know how involved.
Maybe that's why I also didn't like him because here's the thing. Like I like Rob Liefeld quite a bit actually. You know, I think he's an excellent auteur. But I think that came out at a time when I just wasn't that into him. You know, for a while. but I've grown to like really appreciate his work and his unique style. And I try to copy it a lot, actually. I really tried to emulate his style with his big buff bodies and like the very angular feet that he has. Yeah,
wedge feet.
Yeah, the really wedged like diamond shaped feet or whatever like that. I like that was how I always drew my superhero feet.
Very influential. Like makes me think of high school comic book drawing, like ballpoint pen in the notebook. Everybody tried to do Liefeld.
Exactly. Yeah, I had the notebook and everything too. But yeah, I was a big Image Comics guy too, man. The Max.
And, that was
and Witchblade. Oh
that was
God.
my heart.
Witchblade. Image Comics was like the sexy comics, right? Where it was just like a lot more risque, you know?
Yeah, it felt like indie comic. I mean, it went on to be huge, but it felt when it initially was launched, it was like the alternative. You know, it was like felt like the indie comic. It wasn't. It was massive.
Oh my God, Witchblade was so hot though.
God,
that was like so huge for like a teenage boy. Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, that was huge. Witchblade was huge. You can't even Battle Chasers, all those things. Like, oh man, that whole era, 90s into the aughts.
But yeah, Youngblood was my jam though.
Youngblood.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's right, Youngblood.
That,
who created Youngblood? That was
Liefeld.
Was that Liefeld?
Yeah, he
oh, you're right. It was.
He wrote it.
Yeah. I want to look at the cast of the characters in that. Yeah, dude. Oh my God, it's gives me the feels.
Yeah, the dude with the arrow. I don't remember any of these fucking people's names. I'm trying to look them up right now, but I don't remember any of these superhero names. But the dude with the arrow and the dude with the skull face and painted and tattoo.
Yeah, they're so Liefeld. Look at that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Number
Shaft.
4.
There you go. Shaft is that bow and arrow dude. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember him. I'm trying.
And Chapel. There you go. Chapel is the black dude with the skull face. Yeah. Oh my God.
Super
That's crazy.
Cool. And the names, they always come up with the coolest names for characters. I'm all about that. That's so cool. Apparently, there's a band called Youngblood because I can't get anything else in my feed.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
Never heard of that. All right. Number 4 is changing it up a little bit.
Ooh.
I don't know if this is easy or not. I think it is. What does OG stand for? If someone says this guy or gal is an OG, what does OG stand for, you guys? And when you guys are ready, Gene goes first this time.
I'm ready. This is easy.
All right. Gene, what does OG stand for in modern
Original
parlance?
Gangsta.
Original Gangsta. Brad, what did you say, my friend?
I also wrote original gangster. I don't know if you can read that.
Nice. I will also accept Gangsta.
Gangsta. Come on, I'm from SoCal. We all know that here.
That's the thing. Like it is like my era, but Brad is in SoCal. That's
Long
just
Beach
like,
is not far.
that's just like the
right.
native language. Honestly,
I didn't think of that.
Like it's basically the native culture of Brad.
Yeah.
I thought I could trip up
because I went to college in SoCal, so even if I didn't say it on Guam, I'm pretty sure I did. I don't remember, but I definitely said it so much in college.
I was just wondering, is OG now? It's almost to like
it's like
cool
the first
levels,
or
right?
Yeah, it's
like,
cool. It's like the OG one is like the first one, also like that. You refer to that like that.
Do people even know what it means? Though that's what I'm thinking.
I think
like,
so.
Are there people,
because a lot of younger kids, because a lot of younger black kids now call older people the OG. They're like, oh, OG over there, whatever, So, it's either uncle OG or like old head or whatever. But a lot of older folks in the communities now are just called OG. So I'm an OG.
Yeah.
God, if you are, then I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting there. You can call me OG. I don't care either. It's fine.
You're kind of an OG like podcaster, game podcaster.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Game trailer. Anyone who's working in game trailers is pretty OG. Honestly, for fuck's sake, Brad, you worked at fucking game trailers.
I know. I was the last employee.
Did I know?
I was the last one.
You were the last employee. So even if you came in young, that's still pretty OG, dude. So
hell yeah, dude.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, video game because Game Trailers was pre YouTube, right?
It was.
Yes. I was not. That was before me though. But yes, it was.
Kind of like around the same time, but definitely before YouTube became like the video platform, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean that was, I mean, game trailers was a huge sign of like, you know, like if you depend too much on your own video player.
Yeah, dude, it was so bad. Everyone knew there was trash. Also, everyone hated it.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem dude. Like that's the most frustrating thing about being in mainstream media is like, yo, the lessons of failure already happened. Look at game trailers. Like they were obsessed with their fucking video player. Look at IGN. They're obsessed with their video player, and then they've had to pivot away from that. Yep. But like at the Washington Post, we're like, no, but we have this new video player though, and we got a really good deal on it. And
just use YouTube.
Like, bro, that's exactly what happened to fucking game trailers, man. You know, Jesus Christ,
don't do it.
You know,
don't do it.
Oh, gee. Good. All right. Did I write that down? Okay. I'm keeping score here. All right, guys. Number 5. We're almost halfway through. What? No, got a video game one.
Ooh.
Which video game franchise / character has the most games to its name? Which video game franchise / character, that's kind of a hint, it is character based, has the most games to its name? There are a lot of answers, but there's only one with this amount of games.
Okay, I'm ready.
So I'll let that soak in for a sec.
I don't even need.
Whose turn is it first this time? Is it Brad's or Gene's?
Or we're wrong.
It's mine.
It's Brad's first.
Yeah. I wrote Mario. I don't know. There's a million
Mario, same.
And Gene said Mario. You guys both got it right. Over 200 games.
Yeah, infinite.
Overwhelmingly Mario.
Yeah, it's insane. You want to know something crazy? I'll cop to this. When I was researching that question, I didn't realize it was going to be Mario. I don't know. I don't understand why. Because I guess I wasn't thinking. I was thinking like iterations. I wasn't thinking broadly like Smash, sports titles, that sort of thing. But who more than Mario? You know,
I mean, that's the issue with Mario is that Mario games will create the genre. You know,
yeah, that's true.
Like I think Mario games don't get enough credit for actually creating new types of games. You know,
really
Mario Party with the board games, Smash Brothers with the tournament fighters or whatever. You know, the easy fighters.
Yeah,
and then of course Mario Kart and kart racing. You know, not just like racing cars, but actual battle kart racing. You know. Yeah. Mario is just a creator for the medium. Honestly,
he's that guy, dude. He's the guy.
He's that character. He's that character.
Yeah, he really. I mean, as far as mascot goes, why not do some Zelda specific sports titles though? Would that be fun?
Well, hey, Link's in Mario Kart now, or he was in the newest one.
Yeah, so that's true. Mario Kart's one thing. That's true. Mm-hmm. But they reserve all the other things, like right.
They're a little more protective of
Zelda tennis would be good, you know, or like Zelda plus Mario tennis. That would be good.
That would be so fun.
Zelda plus Rabbids.
Instead of having a master sword, you have a master racket, right?
Yeah, well, they had the crossbow training or whatever, like Goofy.
That's true. That's right.
Yes. So you know Zelda golf. You know,
they had that Japanese party game, right? Tetra Trackers. There's only in Japan though.
Oh yeah.
Here it's like a GameCube game.
Oh, that's cool. I have to look that up. I don't know it.
See, but you might see that more now, Dagan. Zelda's bigger than ever, so maybe.
It really is. You guys said that earlier, and it struck me.
I bet they're probably thinking of ways of it. What other types of Zelda?
We got a movie coming out, a live action movie.
I know. When is that
I'm very nervous about. I don't know.
It makes me nervous too.
I'm very nervous about that. I'm like, how do you not animate Zelda?
I know. It's so stupid.
Yeah, there's nothing more. I'm more nervous about the Zelda movie than I am about how America will look by the end of the Trump administration.
Mess it up. Don't mess it up, guys.
But it's true, right? Like, aren't you more nervous about the Zelda movie than what America will look like by the end of the Trump administration? Come on, guys.
Don't hurt me in my heart.
We already know what America looks like after the Trump administration. That's my issue, you know. But we have no idea what a Zelda movie is going to look like.
Oh my god!
like even with a Mario movie, at least we had like a history there. But like no one's ever like the closest thing we have is that stupid fucking IGN April Fool's joke that they did, you know, which was ugly as hell. I can't believe anyone ever thought that was real. You know?
Yeah. Now I'm shook thinking about it. Oh my god.
Yeah, we got
so many ways to go wrong.
Depressed.
Oh my god! All right, this one's a little. I don't know. This one might be tough. Name one novel written by King of Cyberpunk, William Gibson. Now, to my knowledge, there's up to 13 books. 2 of them might have been co-written, but there's a good 10 solid books. The weird thing about William Gibson, I'll tell you guys this, if you're not a big sci-fi cyberpunk novel fan, a surprising low amount of his stuff, even though he kind of created the genre, in not so many words, have made it over to film or television. Oddly, he's worked on things and ghostwritten on things, but as far his works of fiction have not left the written page largely, which is weird.
Interesting.
But if you could name just one of the novels of this baker's dozen, I think I'll start with you, Gene, on this one.
Yeah, I wrote down Neuromancer is the only one I know. So,
Brad, what about you, my friend?
I don't know any of this guy's work. I have no idea.
Okay.
I've never heard of him. And I don't even know if this was a book at all at first. I just thought of Blade Runner. I know it's a movie, 2 movies actually, but I didn't know if it was a book or not.
Very Gibson-esque.
close.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he had direct.
I get confused all the time.
Blade Runner is the cyberpunk thing to me, I guess.
Dude.
And I think a lot of people associate it with that. So that's the only reason I could think of it. I don't know.
The
a lot
original
about
or the
cyberpunk.
remake for you, Brad? Not the remake, but the sequel.
Oh, the sequel? Oh, that's a great question. I mean, the sequel has a really special charm to it, I think,
It's
that I
good.
really like.
I love
I
the
really
sequel.
like the sequel, though, a
love
lot,
the sequel.
too. I thought the sequel was really good.
Mhm.
Really awesome. I don't know. I can't really pick between them, dude. It's
Yeah,
like...
both really boring movies. They take a really long time to get going.
They are long
but
movies, yeah.
Once you're actually in the mood and you actually watch them, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, these are.
You got to be in the mood for those movies,
you
for
gotta be
sure.
in the mood for them. But yeah, these are great.
Yeah, you
movies.
really do. It's a
Yeah.
whole thing. But good job, Gene. You said Neuromancer, probably arguably Gibson's
Neuromancer.
biggest.
I
most
almost
popular.
said "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," which is, but that's
It's
but
Blade
that's
Runner,
the
right?
Blade Runner book.
Yeah.
actually.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
and that's by Philip K. Dick. So,
Dick, right.
Mm.
Yeah, Neuromancer was my first. I had a roommate
I never read
weird.
Neuromancer, so
It's unbelievable unbelievably influential. Like you see it in Blade Runner, you see it in The Matrix, you see it in Akira. But
that's the thing. Yeah, you would see. Like, that's why you were far off, Brad, because it's like Neuromancer.
Yeah, I'm
like,
seeing what
inspired by Blade Runner.
very
Like both of those
influential.
books eventually would become Blade Runner, and Blade Runner would become Akira and everything else. So
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
kind of inextricably tied.
Mhm.
But I had a friend who was a roommate that I grew up with. He had no nerdy tendencies, except for some reason he liked science fiction books. He didn't watch movies. He wasn't into comics. That was his. He didn't
that's
like
interesting.
games. It was really weird.
Mhm.
And
That's
he was
cool.
the one who introduced me to Gibson. And he was like, dude,
Nice.
if you like, science fiction anime, you have to, this is where it all comes from. And I read Neuromancer and then I never looked back. It's
I know a lot of people like
So
that where
cool.
they're like, "Oh, I love romance books, but I don't watch romance movies." at all."
Mm.
They're just really into like the book genre.
it's interesting.
It's really interesting. Yeah, it's like,
That's
'cause,
like me with
I read
horror
sci-fi
movies.
books, but it's mostly because I like sci-fi movies too. Like
Right.
that was like my and sci-fi video games. But
Yeah, it's almost like they're
Yeah.
afraid to enjoy something in another form because they think it's going to ruin the other thing.
it might, yeah, or like maybe their imagination is just so powerful that they just don't need like they just don't want to like filter it through anything else.
I like that theory.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, number 7, venturing back into television here. Which Game of Thrones actor or actress was nominated for an Emmy for every single season of the TV show? Which Game of Thrones actor or actress, I'll also accept character name, was nominated for every single season of the TV show?
I
For
don't
an
know.
Emmy
I
award.
just threw out a guess. I don't watch Game of Thrones, so.
Oh, you never watched it, Gene?
I watched the first season. Thought it was cool, but I was like, I don't need to watch more. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
I gotta try
I
to
get it.
sell you on Game of Thrones.
Well, it doesn't end well, the show.
yeah,
so-
that,
it does not end well.
that's the thing. Like because I know it doesn't end well, that it's like, well, I have like
Yeah,
no
I think
motivation
that-
at all to watch.
yeah,
this
that takes
ever.
away a lot of it. Yeah, definitely.
So it's like it turns out I actually did the good thing. Is like watch the first season, which was really really good, and I was like, yep, I don't need to know the end of the story. It's fine.
It gets so good between then and the end, though.
yeah.
I will say that. Gene, I think you go first this time, my friend.
I'll just say Emilia Clarke because I don't know anyone else. So,
Okay, and Brad, what do you say?
I wrote Peter Dinklage.
Okay, Brad is correct. Peter Dinklage was nominated every single
Remember
season.
him in Destiny?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
That it was a huge reason. Destiny was so weird, bro.
It was so weird.
Peter Dinklage as your sidekick and
Ghost.
Paul McCartney doing the theme song.
Oh my God, I
gotta
forgot
see
about
this.
that. It's so weird.
Yeah, you don't know about the Paul McCartney's theme song?
I never knew this.
It's the ending credit song for Destiny, and
so weird, dude.
and he even put out a whole music video for it that features the Guardians, the Destiny Guardians. You know, it's actually a kind of a good song. Actually, it's really good. I like it a lot.
Is there McCartney vocals in the song?
Yeah,
he
he's
wrote,
like
he
actually
wrote and
singing
sang the
it.
song, and he's in the music video, and the music video is him being a hologram being broadcast by one of the fucking the not the Guardians. What is it? The ghosts.
He's like
you know,
projected by the
Which is
ghost.
basically
Yeah.
Peter Dinklage. So Peter Dinklage is like broadcasting making a hologram of Paul McCartney and Paul
Come
McCartney.
Yeah,
on.
it's like the Princess Leia or R2 shooting Princess Leia out for everyone to see. Like
I have
see.
to immediately
It's what it looks
watch
like.
this upon
It's
finishing.
so weird. Like a Beatle making a song for Destiny is so funny, and a bunch of Guardian video game characters hanging out around him. What a
I
time,
don't know
dude!
how I never knew this.
It's crazy. Yeah, it was
crazy.
Yeah, when I was like, well, how much money does Bungie have to
Dude,
do this?
I can't wait for Rolling
Oh,
Stones
yeah.
to make music for Genshin Impact. That's going to be something when that happens one day.
Wait, what'd you say? The Rolling Stones?
The Rolling Stones, yeah, they'll make a song for Genshin Impact or something.
An original
Could
Keith
happen.
Richards joint.
Yeah,
for
yeah, exactly.
Genshin Impact.
Those two corpses up there dancing around a bunch of anime girls. It'll be perfect.
Fucking Stevie Wonder's like exclusive track for fucking Power World or some shit.
Yeah. Dude, that needs to start happening more.
Yeah.
it going.
Just get
Let's
all
get
these
it going.
the ancient classic rock people,
Yeah.
you know, Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, united
Exactly.
only,
Yeah.
That might
united
be your
only
answer
for
for
one night only
Zelda.
for
Holy shit.
Warframe.
Armored Core 7. They're doing the music for Armored Core 7.
Well, I mean, Arcane is just out right now, and apparently, I saw people getting mad because there's a whole Imagine Dragons like music video like within like one of the episodes.
I think Imagine Dragons is linked with that series.
Oh, I
from
didn't
what
know that.
understand.
They do the theme song for they wrote the whole theme song. So that's why I did the story in the Washington Post about why Imagine Dragons became like the default band for the video games industry.
Yeah.
And it was Jeff Keighley. You have to blame Jeff
Yeah,
Keighley.
I remember Jeff Keighley brought them out.
Yeah.
For like Game Awards.
It was the very first Game Awards.
Wow.
And Imagine Dragons live in Las Vegas, and the very first Game Awards was in Vegas. And Jeff was like, because Jeff is like all about bringing in mainstream acts for
Yeah,
the
right,
game industry. So that's why he reached out to the Imagine Dragons because, it wasn't really Jeff Keighley. You have to blame Ubisoft because Ubisoft hired them first for an Assassin's Creed trailer. They used their song Radioactive, which was huge back in like 2012 or
That
whatever.
was a huge friggin' song.
And then so that's why Jeff was like, oh, I remember that Imagine Dragons did like an Assassin's Creed song. I bet they're gamers. And then he reached out, and it turns out, the Imagine Dragons guy is like a huge gamer. So he was like, oh yeah, dude, totally be part of the Game Awards.
Oh my
And then so they
God.
did. That's why they did a performance of Koji Kondo in 2014, and so they play Legend of Zelda songs.
Yeah, it's so
For
weird.
fuck's sake!
Where can I find that?
But because that's why Nintendo likes working with talent that they're already familiar with or they have history with, right?
Yeah.
So because Jeff made a connection with Imagine Dragons and Koji Kondo, and you just don't have anybody working with Koji Kondo, that's why Nintendo was like, oh, we're so happy with the work with Koji Kondo. That's why Imagine Dragons will now be the soundtrack for the launch of the Nintendo Switch. And so that all the first Nintendo Switch ads that we saw were mostly like Imagine Dragons songs, and that's how it got started. And now
That's
they're in
so
Starfield.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, they're in Arcane now too. I need to watch
I
that
didn't
fucking
know
music video.
I still have to watch Arcane.
I don't want to watch Arcane. I don't want. You know why I don't want to watch Arcane is because I don't want to play League of Legends.
League. Oh, yeah. You don't want to go down that route.
Yeah, because the show is good. Is going to make me want to play League of Legends, and that is an annoying feeling to have. You do not want because you don't want to do that. It's like saying, "Oh, I should do meth again" or something.
Well, Maybe you could play, what is it, 2XKO when that comes out
It might have to
instead?
be 2XKO when that comes out, right? Like, yeah. I'm
You
not
can get
fucking
the skill
playing
there.
League.
Yeah, I'll gravitate more towards that probably as well, if that happens.
Yeah, I'm not a fucking degenerate, you know?
Yeah. I'm not playing MOBAs anymore. I'm done.
All right, number 8, you guys. Now, I'll accept 2 answers for this, and I'll explain further when we're done. But I was baiting for a certain answer when I thought of this question, and it's not what I hoped it would be. But I'll accept the one I was hoping it would be, and this will make sense when I read it. Who is the wealthiest Japanese illustrator of all time? And I will give you a hint. This person is contemporary. Who is the wealthiest Japanese illustrator of all time? There's a correct answer, and then there's another runner-up answer that I was hoping it would be, but it isn't. And I'll accept either one of them.
Okay, I don't know, but gotta guess.
I wonder if I should give a hint.
No hints.
I'll give one hint for one of the answers. And one of these people are inextricably tied to video games.
Oh, one of them. Yeah, okay.
One of them. One of these answers.
Oh,
And again, it's not the correct
Well, I know
answer.
which one that might be, but I'm going to try the other one first. I already wrote down.
Okay. You guys ready?
Yes.
Brad,
sure.
I think you're first on this one.
Okay. I don't know. I'm just going to say, I don't know if you want to count this as an illustrator, but I wrote Eiichiro Oda, who is the guy who made One Piece,
I know
which
exactly
is like
my answer too.
insane phenomenon.
Gene, was that your
my
answer too?
I didn't even watch One Piece or I don't watch One Piece at all, but that was my answer too.
I'm going to think you say either Amano or Toriyama.
Okay. I was baiting when I created this question. I was hoping it was Amano because at one point I heard Yoshitaka Amano was among the wealthiest Japanese fine artists / commercial artists. And it might have been specifically worded that way as commercial artist. Oda is the wealthiest mangaka as far as I know right now.
Yes.
Probably by far, actually.
Yes, he is. By far.
But I was looking for Takashi Murakami, who's more of a lowbrow contemporary. You would know his work immediately on seeing it, crossing with brands.
Oh, Murakami. Yeah, duh. Kanye.
Smiley Flower. Kanye.
Yeah.
Collaborations with every brand and every famous person. So, yeah, I would have accepted Amano or Murakami. Now, if I said mangaka, then I would have said for sure Oda.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were going to include mangakas or anything like that, so I just threw him in there. But yeah, you were
Murakami. Though. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it would be the guy who worked with Kanye.
Really? I guess because Toriyama's a mangaka as well. So yeah, it would be Amano. Isn't he like a fashion designer or something though too?
He was.
Amano was, yeah. So.
Yeah, I tried to get Colin and Micah. Originally I thought when I was like, it would be really cool if I could get them in Amano because they're both huge JRPG nerds.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That would be a great wedding present for them. And I thought, I don't know what I was thinking. That's when I found out how much he was worth and how much his art went for. And then I tried to get limited edition signed prints. And by limited edition, like 1,000, 2,000 runs. Yeah. Completely unaffordable, even for the prints. So, yeah. And they were nice size prints, but yeah, I didn't realize the scale of his success, even outside of video games. But video games put him on the map.
Yeah, how sick is it? He still does work for Final Fantasy. That's so cool still.
It's incredible. He's old.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's old.
Been doing it since the beginning, man. Does like every logo.
One.
Yeah.
All right. Valiant efforts, my friends. As we move on to number 9, I think you guys are going to get this one. Epic, the video game company that created the mighty Fortnite, also created a legendary game engine that it licenses out to other game makers. What is that engine called?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
Sure. Epic, the video game company that created the mighty Fortnite, also created a legendary game engine that it licenses out to other game makers. What is that engine known as? And Brad, are you first or Gene first?
I don't know.
Gene, I'm going to let you go first on this one.
Unreal.
Brad, what do you say?
Yeah, I also wrote Unreal Engine.
All right, my friends.
I think every person in gaming knows that.
Every person in gaming knows that. So.
We got to.
Gotta have it. All right, you guys, well done. And I'm going to end before the bonus, number 10, as another video game question. We gotta go. This is a retro video game question. The very first of a now long list of Star Wars video games was based on which film in the original Star Wars trilogy? The very first Star Wars game was based on which film in the original Star Wars trilogy? All you gotta do is tell me the film. I'll give you the rest of the info. You got a 1 in 3 shot, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know. This is a great
Brad,
question.
I'm gonna let you go
I'm
first on this
thinking
one.
about it. Me?
Yep.
I
no,
wrote,
Gene, are you going first on this? No, Brad, you go first on this one.
I don't know this is right. I just wrote A New Hope, though. I'm not sure.
Okay. Gene, what do you say?
I'll go with Empire.
Okay, it is Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And that is the first Atari 2600
Yes,
Star
I
Wars.
played
Was
it.
it the
Hoth.
Snowspeeder one?
The Hoth-Speeder one.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, man.
I don't know
One
if
of
that's
the
the
most
first Star Wars game,
frustrating
but that
games
is
of all
definitely I played that.
That was before my time.
too.
It's like,
Yeah.
man, I don't really know that.
Yeah, I was gonna say A New Hope, but then I remembered. Oh yeah, Atari. There is no A New Hope Atari
I guess
game.
there was. I thought there would have been like an arcade game or something, but I guess not. Around that time.
No, that was the Star Wars arcade game came not too long after. And that was weird because it had a stand-up cabinet, it had a sit-down version, had multiple versions. It was the Vector one where you do.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought
sick.
it was going to be the arcade one, but turns out no. Yeah, it's Atari. I think.
All right, you guys. I could tally this up
more
after
primitive.
I ask the bonus question, a controversial bonus question, but I
Oh,
want to know your
man.
opinion. I want to know your opinion on this. Are Funko Pop vinyls cool? And let me state by opinion, I mean there is a right and wrong answer for this. Are Funko Pop vinyls cool? Yes or no? Gene, I'm going to let you go first.
No.
Brad, what do you say?
I also say no. I
You
actually
are both
despise them.
correct.
They're so ugly.
You both get bonus points. I'm proud of you both.
Gene or Dagan, I have a deep hatred for those historical, well documented hatred for them.
I didn't know that.
Back in the Easy Allies days, I always thought Funko Pop sucked. Like when they made that
What?
Gears of War Funko Pop, I was like, "What are you doing, man?"
I knew I'd
It's
like
so
you,
dumb.
Brad.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
I
they're
will
so
play it. Isn't there a Funko Pop video game coming out though? Or
probably, dude. It's just insulting to me, Dagan, because there's so many awesome figures out there,
Yes.
and you're gonna buy those abominations. Like, come on! Oh, we lost Gene for a second.
Uh-oh,
Gene
what happened?
disappeared. I don't know. I think maybe the Funko Pops were
Come
too
back.
much for him.
Come
Uh-oh.
back, Gene. Come back.
Come back. Maybe accidentally close the tab or something.
Yeah, isn't that funny? The Funko Pop thing. If there's a video game, oh, there he is. He's back.
sorry about that. My browser just crashed.
If
So-
there
Oh,
is
damn.
a Funko Pop video game, how did it take so long? They've been out for years.
I don't know. They missed the boat, dude. Too late. Too little, too late. Now people are. It's like I don't know, man. It's like Beanie Babies. There's just so many of them.
Beanie
What are you gonna do? You
Babies.
can put them in a landfill? I don't know.
The model for Funko Pops, because I'm old, dates back to me remembering Pez in the 70s. But I felt like
Oh,
Pez was
Pez looked cooler though.
it was cool.
They
It has a
looked cool.
function. Pez.
Yeah,
You know.
you got candy.
Yeah. The candy gimmick, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, they look disturbing, but like, yeah, again, they're popping on candy, so
definitely
it's fine, you know.
All right, let me
Funko
count
Pop
these.
just got these dead, like black shark eyes or whatever, and
Yeah.
like these square faces, and it's just
Yes.
like, no, I don't want this.
Yeah, like aesthetically, like they're not appealing, you know. I don't understand how they became like a design.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And you know what? They remind me of the way of the Lego minifig. And I'm not insulting the Lego minifig because I think it's awesome. But it used to be this brick-built sensibility, like if we're going to make SpongeBob and Squidward, we're going to make them out of Lego. And then it became like just miniature sculpted SpongeBob and Squidward, you know?
Yeah.
Funko is the same thing. Like now they take these liberties and they just make, you know, as they get more and more things that are harder to squeeze into the Funko template.
Yeah.
And that's cheating, I feel like.
That's cheating.
Plus, at least it wasn't good when it wasn't cheating.
They look good, though, at least, Legos. They're visually appealing,
yes,
I should say,
agreed.
at least.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, Legos look visually appealing, like Astrobot. Like if they came out with Astro figures of different characters.
Right.
Like Astrobot. Have you played Astrobot yet, Dagan?
No, but it looks amazing.
Like, as an animator, I feel like that would be something that you would.
Yeah, you'd be into that.
I have FOMO. I have Astrobot FOMO for sure. Same thing that's going on now with what was the other game you were talking about?
Dragon Quest. Oh, Metaphor is so good, dude.
It looks amazing.
Are you gonna play Dragon Quest, Dagan?
And Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
I just found out about that yesterday, actually. I was really behind on that.
Yeah, it's so good, man.
I was so excited to beat Velgard so I can finally start playing Dragon Quest.
Dagan, speaking of Legos, look at this. I don't know if you've seen this yet.
I didn't know it was out.
Oh, it's out, baby.
What?
You've had that for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been waiting to build it.
I'm showing up the Deku Tree Lego set, which is like a three, like
I'm an idiot. I bought
PlayStation
it.
5 Pro.
Yeah, I'm an idiot.
And it has the two versions, right?
You can build the Ocarina of Time Deku Tree or the Breath of the Wild version.
Dude, somebody leaked that set. I think we talked about it on the first episode of Punching Up.
A while ago, yeah.
That was a reliable
been in the makings for a while, yeah.
Leak. Oh, I can't believe it's out. That looks amazing. Good man. Now listen, guys, we have an upset here. It was close though.
Upset.
We got Brad with a score of 6.
Oh.
And we got Gene with a score of 8. Gene scored 7 correct plus the bonus.
Nice.
So it was a close race. But perhaps next time the quiz will be more specific and skewed to a more specific.
No, this was a fun quiz because because it was fun to reflect on all the different topics, right? I think that's what made this quiz a little bit more fun.
That was a good quiz.
Good, I'm glad you guys
were all able to dish on a variety of topics. It's actually an interesting way to keep Stelly covering just a bunch of different topics.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about it. There are like many topics in there. And I'm proud of you guys for both getting the bonus right. It really does me proud.
Yeah, we got you, dude. Don't worry about it.
No, there was a point where I started to be like, oh, maybe Funko Pops aren't so bad, but it's like that's like cope and see because of the fact that they're just everywhere, and I'm just no, actually, no, I still fundamentally hate them because then like you look at like an Nendroid or something, like you look at any other fucking toy company,
exactly,
and their toys look a lot better,
exactly. Any other statue, figure, anything's better than those.
Literally any other action figure, even if it's like a generic Mattel action figure, like that looks cooler than a Funko
I would rather
Pop.
have that. Yeah,
totally.
I'd rather have that. Yeah,
I agree with you guys. And there's something about the Funko Pop. I don't know if I ever expressed this before, but I definitely feel this way, where it takes something that you like something very specific to you, almost in a gatekeeping capacity, and then when it makes a Funko Pop of it, it feels like, oh, I don't want that to be a Funko Pop.
It drains the soul and what makes that art style or the 100%. Character design like unique, and it's just like forces it into the fucking square head. That's what it is,
Yeah. Exactly.
So you're taking. It's not. That's the issue with Funko Pop is that like it doesn't accentuate. It's not a good caricature. It doesn't follow the good rules of caricaturing where you're exaggerating like the more unique parts of what makes like something look unique. You perform more emphasis on that, right?
Yeah, it's too
so like even an Astrobot robot. There's an emphasis on like, for example, on like the Astrobot Aloy, like there's an emphasis on her hair, so it brings out her red hair more or whatever, or Jin Sakai is Ghost of Tsushima, it's like his armor comes out a little bit more, or God of War, like his beard is like more prominent, right? Whereas like in Funko Pop, the design of the head and the body is like so overwhelming that it overpowers like any other like look. So that's why like when you see like a Marcus Phoenix Funko Pop, like that's insulting because that's not fucking Marcus Phoenix,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to make Gene so upset.
I'm upset now too.
I'm upset now too. Oh my God. Yeah, it's too limiting. Funko, please stop.
Please go away. That's enough,
Target,
guys.
you're not helping.
Yeah, that's enough.
GameStop, you're not helping. Yeah.
GameStop's not helping.
Well, GameStop's
but it is
dying,
helping
so-
GameStop, probably.
Yeah, it's helping GameStop
For some
die.
reason, yeah.
Well, listen, guys, that's another one for the record books. I really enjoyed this episode. I'm going to kick it over to my friends here for goodbyes as we head into the weekend. Gene, thank you for joining me as always. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for your patience. I apologize for being late. I completely forgot that I was going to do this episode. It's just been, like I mentioned earlier, it's just been a crazy time in DC. It's very, very overwhelming. So it's just really hard. I can't believe it's already the middle of November. Like that's
I know, dude.
I know.
This year's going fast.
That's
for me.
insane. Yeah, the end of the year is just going like just whizzing on by. It's crazy. So thank you so much for your patience and thanks for hosting.
And if things get crazy in the nation's capital, you come on and do Constellation with me whenever you want, whenever you can. Maybe it's therapeutic in some sense.
Sure.
Yeah,
I would love to have you on.
And
And Brad,
yeah, that's why I needed to get some stuff off my chest with like in terms of like what I'm seeing in the political discourse too.
Gene,
So
it's you.
Yeah.
You bring whatever you want to
I
talk
hope you all
about.
enjoyed that. So
That was fun.
Yeah,
That was
I
good.
enjoyed it.
Nice variety of topics. Brad, it's always a pleasure to see you too, my friend. Weekend
you,
plan.
man.
Talk to me about weekend plans. What's going on out in Orange County /
Weekend
Anaheim,
plans?
SoCal this weekend?
you don't care
my-
about my weekend plans?
We'll get to you. You'll get your time.
Gene, I'm going to go right back to you for weekend plans,
Yeah.
my friend.
I'm about to eat a California burrito, so I'm pretty stoked about that.
Appropriate.
Then I'm going to play Yakuza Infinite Wealth. Gene, I've been playing I Think of You every time I play it because it's in Hawaii, of course.
Yeah, that's right. How far are you now?
I'm not that far. I'm like 6 hours in, so ways to go still. I want to play Dragon Quest 3, but I got to try to chip away at Yakuza first.
Infinite
Right now.
Wealth. Yeah.
That's
How are you
right.
enjoying it so far though?
It's upsettingly good because I'm like, man, I still have some burnout, Gene, still, but it's just really good. Still,
good.
I'm like, well, this is a really good game. So
And it's a whole new map, which is fun,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
A
it is
whole new
fun.
map.
Yeah. And I don't know, dude. Hopefully just relaxing this weekend. I don't think I have any big plans that I'm thinking of coming up. So that's good for me. That's what I like to
That
hear.
sounds
So,
great.
yeah. Hopefully I
That
just
sounds
get
like
to
you got
relax,
it.
play games.
I love it. Gene, weekend plans. What do you got going on, dude?
Unfortunately, a lot of work. I will be writing my review for Metaphor Refantasio. It is a /review/interview. But I hope to
cool.
get that out next week. But I interviewed Hashino-san, Brad.
That's sick, dude. That's awesome.
So that was a lot of fun, and I did the thing that I love to do in my interviews with video game creators, where I asked them a question that they've never heard before.
That's great.
And I did that with Hashino-san, where I asked him a question, and he was like stun locked. He was like, I've done so many interviews before. No one's ever asked me this question before, and this is
Awesome,
actually
dude.
like the most important question that you could ask. So
Dude,
thank
that's
you.
amazing.
And I was like,
That's
oh,
great.
Congratulations.
love to hear that. So,
Mhm.
but that's why like it's taking me a while because I'm just going to be really spending some time making sure that the metaphor piece is also my election reaction piece, basically.
It makes sense in the game.
Exactly, yeah. Because I don't know, Dagan, if you know, but metaphor is all about democracy.
No, I didn't know.
It's
I
an
don't know
election
anything about
going
it.
on pretty much.
Okay, yeah. Well, the metaphor is a video game about democracy. So, and the very idea of it. So, it is kind of the perfect game to play in the midst of all this. So, I'll be I'll be writing that, and I'm still working on my big old investigation piece that I've been talking about for months, and it's still going on.
Oh, wow.
But we'll see. So it's actually busier than ever before right now.
You mentioned that on social media. I saw you say that. And
Yeah, still working
Sounds
on it.
busy.
Still hammering away. It's crazy. So,
ladies and gentlemen, the hardest working man in games and other media, and two of the hardest working people in games media I'm looking at here. Who gives you better people than this? Right? Forget me. Look at these two characters that I got on here. Listen,
the
that's
OGs.
our time.
Yeah.
All good things must come to an end. Patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access. As always, don't get the FOMOs like I get the FOMOs for Astrobots and Metaphors. Listen to us first. We're bringing you all these prophetic things. We're talking about Rolling Stones doing soundtracks for games. Like, you hear it here first. You know what I mean? That's it. And laststandmedia.store has the merch. As always,
You know who the Rolling Stones would be a good band for?
Tell
A
me.
good video game IP for? Resident Evil.
Oh,
Sure. Yeah.
Because they're zombies.
Yeah.
Like,
They are.
I could see that.
They are corpses. Yeah.
They
they're
are
basically
nearly
corpses. So you just have
Yeah,
Mick
you
Jagger
see-
and Keith Richards up there
you
like
see those
dancing,
two
and
up
you're
there?
like, they're in character, you know?
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Give him an RPD outfit or something. Good to go.
Dude, that'd be so sick.
Yeah.
Keith Richards and like his little Jill Valentine hat or whatever. Hell yeah. And
the beret.
shoulder
Yeah, that'd be
pads.
awesome.
Yeah. that'd be
Capcom
sick.
keeps going like they're going. They're going to be able to afford it.
I
Let's
know,
be
man.
honest, right?
Make it happen.
And the other thing you guys made me think about earlier, no joke, Led Zeppelin / Robert Plant for the Zelda soundtrack, right?
Could
You got
happen.
the whole
Yeah.
fantasy Lord
You
of
know
the
what?
Rings thing
That'd be
going
good.
on
It
there.
does,
anyway.
Cool. I that would never happen. But
No, it really would never happen. Isn't that funny?
but you're right though that Robert Plant and Jimmy Page like collaboration for like a fantasy game like Dragon Age would actually be probably would have been pretty cool, you know? or Skyrim even or the next Elder Scrolls. Yeah, exactly.
Elder
Fucking
Scrolls
Starfield
6.
hired Imagine Dragons.
Oh,
So for Elder Scrolls, have Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin, Misty Mountain Hop, you know.
Zelda's gonna have Imagine Dragons. I just know it, man. It's gonna happen.
man.
Because
Zelda
they
is
already
gonna
work
have
with
Imagine
Nintendo.
Dragons,
Yeah,
isn't it?
Please
it's
don't.
gonna suck.
God damn it, dude.
Nintendo, don't do it.
Just stop, guys. Like, don't do it. Just don't do
No,
it.
I really hope they don't do it because that Mario movie trailer. We were lucky that the Mario movie like cast announcement was like so funny.
Yeah.
But and Chris Pratt wasn't bad. But what if he was?
No.
And it's like, oh my god, though. It's like
Yeah, what if
Imagine
he
Dragons
was?
is like announced in any capacity for Zelda. That's just. I don't even hate Imagine Dragons, but
I know,
like
same.
no,
I
please
just-
don't stop,
Yeah,
please.
just stop. It's
Guys,
enough.
I have one
It's enough,
last.
guys.
Am I on the mic? I have one last shameless plug. I should have done this weeks ago.
Okay.
But I
Plug it.
promised somebody here, a friend of ours, Pat Contry, retro video gamer.
Oh,
This
yeah.
book came out. This is Pat's N64 book, fresh off the presses.
Wow, that's
It's
beautiful.
the third retro video game book that I contributed for after the
Ooh.
Nintendo and Super Nintendo books. Get your, let's see, Pat Contry's Ultimate Guide to the N64 Library. It's very good. Reviews every single N64 game, including the
Wow.
imports
Hmm.
and Japanese titles, all kinds of weird, brilliant photography. And again, should have plugged this. Shameless plug, but I should have plugged it weeks ago.
Oh, yeah,
And
plug
It's a
it.
handsome book, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's
Wait,
heavy.
what?
I mean,
give
this
me
is
one game you wrote about.
Oh, let's see. I purposely wrote very obscure games
Cool.
because I'm not a big N64 guy. In fact, I'm
Mhm.
kind of a detractor of the system. I'm not a huge fan. So I just told him to give me as shovelware games as you can.
Okay,
So I did a
cool.
lot of the TV show things. I did
Oh, like Wheel of Fortune and stuff.
no
fun.
like the anime. I did Batman the animated series game. I did.
Oh,
You know what
yeah.
I did?
That was good though on NC4. Yeah.
That wasn't terrible. I did
Yeah.
Powerpuff Girls, Chemical X, whatever. You know,
Mhm.
you would think it was. That's not the exact title. Don't quote me.
That must have been good too.
But it wasn't terrible. I was
Mm.
actually surprised at the quality of the game. Did a lot of racing
Yeah.
games. Did Tony Hawk 1 and 2, I think, which was
Nice.
nice. But
Mm.
mostly I said, give me the obscure games. Give me the games that were either bad, the ones that weren't well received, or the ones nobody knows about. Because I didn't want the golden eyes and everything because that's too much. It's too much
Mm.
pressure,
Sure, I get it.
right? But it was fun to work on. Got to do a shameless plug for the book. Love Pat.
Tony Hawk N64 was cool because like
Very good game.
The C buttons made it easier to like grind on or whatever. So
Yeah, a little bit. See, I'm not good with the N64 controller.
It's an
I'm
awkward
notoriously
controller.
bad with it. But that was a pleasure to do. And it was a pleasure to work on the book. Even the bad titles, which I did the Sesame Street games. Yeah, and I think he's reprinting the NES, the original NES book, the third reprinting. We're going to rewrite some of the reviews for that. So that's my next project with him.
Cool.
So go out and support Pat. He's a fellow YouTuber and hell of a dude. Not too far from Brad. He's down in San Diego. You guys could have seen
okay.
him for the live show.
Yeah.
And that's it, guys. Thank you. That's our time. For Brad and Gene, I've been your host, Dagan Dagster Moriarty, saying thanks for joining us today, as always, and we'll see you next week. Until then, you can always just listen to your second favorite podcast. Goodbye.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.